Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life, and firecracker tricks with explosion marshmallows is one of the most American things I've ever seen. Only in the colonies do you worship the smell of gunpowder and the spectacle of colorful pyrotechnics. Firecracker tricks follows in that tradition with the sort of fragile patriotism that demands everything edible and inedible draw from a limited color palette. They're spherical red and blue swirls with marbits that literally simulate exploding fireworks. What's interesting is the original tricks were spherical and more than 46% sugar when they came out in 1954. Then in 1991, tricks switched over to puffed fruit-shaped pieces before moving back to spheres in 2007 and reverting again to fruit pieces in 2018. But whatever the shape, and through all of its various configurations, Trix hasn't usually included marshmallows. And possibly because of that, and its close similarity to other fruity cereals, Trix has never really captured the public's imagination like, say, Honey Nut Cheerios or Cinnamon Toast Crunch, or even Lucky Charms, Fruit Loops, or Fruity Pebbles, all of which usually rank within the top 15 to 20 best-selling cereals. I'd actually say the majority of Americans are more familiar with a certain kleptomaniac rabbit than the actual taste of Trix. It's the 7-Up of breakfast cereals. Decent enough, but forever relegated to AAA, while the big boys like Frosted Flakes and Honey Bunches of Oats bounce around the majors. Trix is perfectly acceptable for a bowl of peasant gruel, but it's never been anything more than an also-ran cereal, the one Americans settle on because it has a cool toy or promotion. Or they recall something about a silly rabbit when they're in the breakfast aisle. The spherical red and blue swirls are decent enough, and the fireworks marshmallows are no better or worse than the Marbits and 50 other sugary kid cereals. I suppose if your patriotism needs constant reassurance and everything you consume must match the American flag, you could do worse. So I rate the firecracker tricks 3.5 silver spoons out of 5. Please remember to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine. Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. And I'd like to discuss the steady stupefaction of the English language, courtesy of the pictographic little balls of idiot known as emojis. The fact that emojis were originally meant to fill in missing emotional cues from forms of communication that were already dumbed down makes them even more infuriating. When emojis first appeared in 1997 on Japanese mobile phones, there was still hope left for humanity. The United States was in the midst of an economic boom, fueled in part by what we later learned was the dot-com bubble. But at the time, everything seemed peachy. Sure, mobile devices at the time looked less like the comprehensive multimedia devices they'd become, and more like blunt objects you'd use to bludgeon your enemies, but optimism was high, unless you were being bludgeoned. In the middle of this fiscal prosperity, and on the eve of the new millennium, emojis were unleashed upon the world, setting in motion the inevitable extinction of the human race. From there, we bore witness to the burst of the dot-com bubble, and an even greater calamity, the Emoji Movie. These days, Americans have gradually replaced rational thought with pictographs, using emojis to indicate happiness, amusement, and a throbbing erection. And at this stage, we're long past the point of Stockholm Syndrome, and we've entered the realm of self-parody. So we've got quasi-edible grub like Cinemoji Toast Crunch, and Goji Waffles. Get it? They're Eggo waffles in the shape of low brain cell counts. The Agojis? Ugh, dear God, I feel dumber just uttering that. The Agojis include up to 6 pictograph designs per package, and they were originally meant to commemorate World Emoji Day, which falls on July 17th. Yes, that's an actual thing, and yes, you now have cancer. According to Eggo's marketing director, Joe Buprez, what better way for parents to create small wins for their kids than by serving them, quite literally, smiles on a plate? I wouldn't be caught dead within 500 feet of a mutilating brat, my own or otherwise, but if I did happen to interact with one of my illegitimate offspring around breakfast time, I'd rather they starve than even look at this edible shorthand for idiot. Objectively, these don't taste any better or worse than the normal Eggo waffles, but I need every one of my voluminous brain cells to assert my intellectual superiority over all of you. So I'll be avoiding these like I do the United States of America. So I rate the Agojis 2 silver spoons out of 5. Please remember to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine. Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. Life is funny. One day you're an Oxford-educated professor and intellectual, betting a new fair maiden every night, and properly appreciated for my cultural and intellectual superiority. The next, I'm reviewing salty snacks originating or inspired by Mexico, and giving soliloquies to an audience of peasants and blue-collar slobs. But I'm not bitter. Who needs professional accolades and scores of beautiful women when I get to wax poetic about Takis and Nitro Pepsi? I'd much rather drink Mountain Dew than 100-year-old Scotch, and I'd eat Pringles any day over aged Toro or caviar. I've waited my entire life to pop and not be able to stop. And yes, that means exactly what you think it does. Pringles dates back to 1968, making it one part dirty, stinking hippie. And its claim to fame is not making me vomit. A lofty achievement for any American snack. Their original marketing department, no doubt high on acid, called these things Pringles newfangled potato chips. But purists and competitors argue they shouldn't count as potato chips because they're made from a potato-based dough instead of being sliced from actual potatoes. And that proves just how many people need to get laid instead of squabbling over the name of the snack that's taking years off their life. But whether it's potato-based dough or actual potato slices, Pringles contains about 42% starchy vegetable. That said, I should point out that Pringles aren't nearly as healthy as most presume, merely because they have a light, airy flavor to them. If you compare the nutritional labels of Pringles and Lay's potato chips, there's surprisingly little difference. In fact, Pringles have about 2.5 times more saturated fat than the competition. This particular one, Pringles Mexican Street Corner, also contains yellow corn flour, corn starch, and all the normal ingredients of this potato-like product. And though it may be as natural as Barry Manilow's face, these Pringles aren't bad. And I can actually taste the subtle undercurrent of corn. You couldn't pay me enough to stand on an actual Mexican street corner where the stench of poverty is suffocating. But I'll happily enjoy a Mexican-inspired snack like this from afar, where I can appreciate a culture without touching it, seeing it, or smelling it. So I rate the Pringles Mexican Street Corner 3.5 silver spoons out of 5. Please remember to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine. Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. And let's see what I got here. Moon pie. What is that, some kind of nerdy sci-fi virgin vittles? Are we going to zoom around on a spaceship, f***ing aliens, and getting more of our own people killed than Leonidas, Custer, and Ahab put together?
No! No!
Oh, I've never heard of moon pie. Is this new on the market? So it's not quite new. Yes, even perfect individuals like myself sometimes make mistakes. It's as rare as Halley's Comet, but it happens. And apparently, you Americans have been f***ing green aliens for over a century. Moon pies originated in America's home for blues music, Memphis barbecue, and whiskey. Oh yes! I have a list stashed somewhere of all the American products that come reasonably close to the European counterparts. And one of them is Gentleman Jack Whiskey. Tennessee is also home to the Chattanooga Bakery, which has been producing plump Americans since the early 20th century. Their claim to fame is this mishmash of graham biscuits, marshmallow, and chocolate known as moon pie. According to legend, a Chattanooga bakery salesman was touring one of the few states that makes Tennessee look cosmopolitan, Kentucky. While there, he came across a peasant coal miner, and after the salesman made sure he was up to date on his rabies shots, and he fetched himself a nose clip, he asked the miner what he'd like to eat. The future candidate for mesothelioma infomercials responded that he wanted a snack as big as the moon. And while I find that story as apocryphal as that one about the virgin female, no doubt a Star Wars fan, who gave birth to just the cutest little son of God, while I find them equally implausible, it's a good story. For an area of America where the average canine is more educated than the average person, and the 2 graham biscuits, marshmallow filling, and chocolate-coated bundle of sugar and carbs produced fat little children throughout the Great Depression, World War II, and all the way through the present. In the post-war period, the Chattanooga Bakery went through a massive expansion, and as a result, moon pies proved especially popular with the same morons who'd go weeks without bathing at lavish displays of crunchy music and body odor like Woodstock. And while that alone should make me rate this lower than the American education system, I'll give it a try. For a treat that's popular with Southern colonists and boomers, this could be a lot worse. I can definitely see why this is especially popular with the people sporting bigger waistlines than Benny Hill and Fatty Arbuckle. Because this moon pie is loaded with flavor and a surplus of sugar and saturated fat. If the Americans below the Mason-Dixon line had an official food, it'd be diabetes. As for your cultural and intellectual superior, this is a bit more crumbly than I'd prefer, but it has a tasty chocolate shell, and the robust marshmallow flavor pairs well with the graham biscuits. I could think of much worse ways to clog my arteries. So I rate the moon pie 4 silver spoons out of 5. Please remember to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine. Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. And I was up last night arguing with a bunch of Harvard flunkies on the superiority of the Oxford comma. I haven't seen such mental midgets since I accidentally attended that Proud Boys meeting. And since those Cambridge cretins kept me up so late, I thought I'd try these virgin energy drinks. Or I'd assume their target audience is dorky males with less sexual experience than Mother Teresa. I'd assume as much from the drink's electronic game trappings. G Fuel likes to market itself as a clean, natural, and healthy alternative to sugar-loaded energy drinks. Indeed, if you take a look at your average Monster, Red Bull, or Nose, I don't know. Your average energy drink has a huge surplus of sugar and calories. And along with a diet of Hot Pockets and Cheetos, it's a wonder pro gamers make it to the ripe old age of 25. The company boasts that because it doesn't contain sugar, G Fuel doesn't include a crash once its effects wear off, supposedly after 4 to 6 hours. But that's 4 to 6 hours of intense, jittery madness that you can't experience outside of nose candy. With 300 milligrams of caffeine per 16 ounce, this has about 163% more energy than your average cup of coffee. And it's right in line with other liquid cocaine, though without the actual white stuff that makes it taste good. Of course, like all legal stimulants, G Fuel carries a number of health risks. Doctors warn that energy drinks can lead to irregular heartbeats, high blood pressure, anxiety, insomnia, and overuse of homophobic and racial slurs by 10-year-old and 30-year-old man-children alternating between gaming and their, girlfriend in their parents' basement. But what do doctors know? They're just highly trained professionals who've gone to school for 22 to 26 years. And you're a regular contributor on 4chan and are seriously thinking about getting a temp job. But enough about your sad, pathetic, and lonely existence. G Fuel comes in non-caffeinated powder, a powdered hydration formula, a Pop Rocks-like version, and a carbonated canned version, which I've chosen for today. I probably don't need to explain the Tetris and Sonic the Hedgehog accoutrements, since gamers have long looked towards energy drinks to get them pepped up to frag and teabag complete strangers on the interwebs. And since these are essentially carbon copies of each other with identical ingredients but different designs on the can, I'll just try one of them. Also, I don't want my heart to dance the mambo. Ugh! It's like that time I mistook lidocaine for absinthe. Since G Fuel doesn't contain sugar, it relies on sucralose and an antioxidant blend, including green coffee bean extract, green tea extract, tart cherry, and more for flavor. And the green tea is paramount. If you do enjoy this unoxidized tea, you might like G Fuel. But if not, it'll probably taste rather foul.
Not as bad as that Mountain Dew travesty I subjected myself to, but quite dreadful. However, if you desperately need a surplus of caffeine to play games with other friendless losers, then I suppose you could do worse. So I rate G Fuel 2.5 silver spoons out of 5. Please remember to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine.
Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. What dimwit decided that the foul cacophony of artificial flavors known as Fruit Loops should be softer and grittier? No one did, because that idea is as dumb as a cereal with 6 different colors that each taste the same. The same vaguely lemony orangey flavor that's about as natural and as tasty as antifreeze. Technically, each Fruit Loop is a nauseating blend of orange, lemon, cherry, raspberry, apple, blueberry, and lime. And if you think those contrasting flavors don't merge well together, you'd be correct. Apparently, the brilliant minds behind Fruit Loops had their taste buds burned off with sulfuric acid. So take that cacophony of conflicting, chaotic crap, switch the hard texture for a gritty chewiness that makes it taste like expired peach rings, and you've got the Fruit Loops gummies. About as tempting as dipping my whip in a hornet's nest. This is exactly what I expected. A vile cereal turned vile gummy. And in case you were worried, yes, the gummy version perfectly replicates the chemical-like fruity jumble of the cereal. And yes, like the cereal, every gummy color tastes exactly the same, because why mess with extreme mediocrity? So I rate Fruit Loops gummies 2 silver spoons out of 5. Please remember to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine. I see at least one thing wrong with this title. Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. And yes, despite the name, Liquid Death isn't the third cousin of Dr. Kevorkian. Oh, and just so all you peasants don't get your bloomers in a bunch, I am not sponsored in any way by Liquid Death, though I wish I was. Oliver Gerald's integrity is always for sale to the highest bidder. In their clever little manifesto, Liquid Death states, "We're just a funny water company who hates corporate marketing as much as you do. Our evil mission is to make people laugh and get more of them to drink more water more often, all while helping to kill plastic pollution." On their cans, they implore you to murder your thirst in an act of liquid homicide. And in a devious mission statement that will no doubt be used in court someday, they declare that
Once cracked open, no thirst is safe from liquid death. After ritually dismembering its thirst victims, this brutal can of water used the severed body parts of dead thirsts to build itself a flesh suit which it used as a disguise to get a job in marketing.
I wish to drown a man.
So the goal of this beverage company, led by former rocker Mike Cesario, hashtag death to plastic, is to cut down on plastic waste, save the environment, and all that hippy-dippy happy bullshit. But that's about as hardcore as Ned Flanders, hence the creative marketing. And speaking of marketing, they've got some interesting merchandise. Along with a bunch of murder and death-themed shirts, they sell just the most adorable little plush sea creatures being shredded and eviscerated by plastic waste. These cutie palooties include Wasty the Whale, Suffers the Seal, and Trashy the Turtle. And the company wants to remind you that they're an adult collectible, not a toy. And they're priced as such, though 50% of the profits are used to help kill plastic pollution. However the that works. And they may cause nightmares in children and many adults. How delightful. So beyond the mental marketing, and it is pretty creative in a Jeffrey Dahmer sort of way, how's the actual beverage? Well, it comes in sparkling and a carbonated distilled version, plus a few special flavors like severed lime. I purchased the plain sparkling version, and with an ingredients list of mountain water and CO2, it's fairly straightforward. And this is really a lifestyle brand, in that it's mostly style and creative marketing. Because let's face it, at the end of the day, it's just water. Even if it's sparkling or contains 5 grams of carbonation, similar to the consistency of many beers. Your enjoyment of liquid death largely depends on how drawn in you are by the marketing or how much you appreciate the fact that it only uses recycled materials. Or maybe you enjoy its absolutely mental merchandise. Either way, this isn't something you can properly enjoy in a blind taste test. You need to consume every aspect of it. So I rate the Liquid Death sparkling version 3.5 silver spoons out of 5. Please remember to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine.
Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life, Russell Stover, my old adversary. That takes me back to my very first video. Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. And today I'm taking a very special look at Joy Bites from Russell Stover of the Third Dynasty. What the f*** was I on? I sound like I drank a Valium and Vicodin cocktail. For an American chocolatier, Russell Stover is one of them. Yes, even though it was purchased by an exponentially classier European company, Lindt, Russell Stover remains an independent subsidiary operating out of one of the most bum
of all American metro areas, Kansas City. And that automatically makes Russell Stover inferior in every possible way. Like the most boring sport on the planet, compared to, oh, well, you hicks call it soccer. One of them involves lots of standing around, asinine chanting, and hooligans rioting when their team loses. And the other is soccer. So we already know Russell Stover bears a cultural burden and is as fundamentally flawed as America's Constitution. But what happens when one garbage brand plagiarizes another garbage brand from the same inferior culture? That's what we have with the Russell Stover chocolate candy gems on their carbon copy of M&M's. If you're going to steal, why not pilfer something that doesn't have the wretched stench of Americana? Why not plunder something with a little class? It'd be like at the British versions of The Office, Cash Cab, Faking It, Celebrity Fit Club, 11th Hour, Four Weddings, Hell's Kitchen, House of Cards, The IT Crowd, MasterChef, Max Headroom, Men Behaving Badly, American Idol, Robot Wars, Junkyard Wars, Shameless, Sanford and Son, Dancing with the Stars, VP, All in the Family, Top Gear, Undercover Boss, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, Wife Swap, and The X Factor plagiarized American TV instead of the other way around. But alas, we're stuck with a mediocre copy of a mediocre original. I suppose as American icons go, M&M's aren't terrible. But they're the RC Cola to Europe's Coke, the monkeys to the rest of the world's Beatles. That being said, Russell Stover's facsimile of M&M's has one thing going for it, and that's a conspicuous lack of sugar. Instead, the chocolate candy gems contain stevia, which gives them a slight aftertaste, like the time I French kissed a meth addict. They sport different colors than M&M's, but that's redundant because all M&M's and chocolate candy gems taste identical. Otherwise, these are not but a cheap copy of the original. They're the GoBots to M&M's Transformers, the Flintstones to the Honeymooners, the Lion King to Kimba, America to Great Britain. So I rate Russell Stover's chocolate candy gems 3 silver spoons out of 5. Please remember to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine.
Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. And,
Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could that they didn't stop to think if they should.
yeah, that! Cola and sour candy aren't exactly congruent at first, second, or third glance. It's not the first combination that I'd think of. It's like Americans and civility. But apparently, cola and sour candy isn't exceedingly uncommon. Haribo has a cola-flavored sour gummy, Japanese confectioner Nobel has Super Cola, and the undisputed king of sour candy, Sour Patch Kids, just put out Sour Cola Bubbles. They come in circular bubble-like shapes in dark and light brown. However, the second color is just for decor because they both taste the same. To my surprise, these taste remarkably similar to a generic cola, but I'll get to that in a second. Before the sour cola bubbles even reach your mouth, you'll notice the weird smell. Not quite cola, more like cinnamon. I don't mind cinnamon, except in gum and alcohol, but here it just feels off. like it was amateur hour at Mondelez International. I've made no secret of the fact that despite its filthy stench of Americana, Sour Patch Kids agree with my elegant palate. Their curious sour flavor is rather striking, and not just for a peasant colonial treat. But these cola bubbles are a bit toothless. They reminded me more of SBK not so sour than a normal formula. There's still an initial sour kick with sweet on the back end, but the former is flatter than normal. Like a ballerina. And speaking of which, the cola flavor tastes like a flat carbonated beverage, or like a soda that's been watered down. Part of that is the fact that there's no carbonation to speak of. So you're essentially just having the cola syrup. And on the back end, a faint aftertaste joins the sweet flavor. This just isn't the same Sour Patch Kids that I've reluctantly thrown in my lot with. It's more like a knockoff sour candy that filthy plebeians purchase at the dollar store. And just thinking about that is making me break out in hives. It's the dingy scent of poverty. I take it as a personal affront that Mondelez would tinker with one of the few American treats that I actually like. And believe me, that's as rare as me giving to charity or paying child support. This is worse than when my second wife put on baby weight. It's like when the Americans took a perfect ballad like God Save the Queen and defiled it with some Yankee Doodle bullshit. So I rate Sour Patch Kids Cola Bubbles 2.5 silver spoons out of 5. Please remember to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine.
Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. And it's that time of the decade when I feel the need to praise a distinctly American original. Cinnamon Toast Crunch dates back to 1984. And like the vast majority of American favorites, the original idea was stolen, pilfered, and appropriated, with little to no regard given to the actual creators. God bless America. According to legend, General Mills held a Give Us Your Best Idea for a Cereal Radio contest, and some random child submitted the idea of Cinnamon Toast Crunch, which was then invented by scientist John Mendes and General Mills assistant product manager Elizabeth Trach. In exchange for the multi-billion-dollar idea, the child got some free Hot Wheels cars. God bless America! And so began Cinnamon Toast Crunch, which started as plain squares but now includes cinnamon swirls. Today, it's the 5th best-selling cereal in the US, and it's not hard to see why. One of your most partisan cable news channels, no wait, I have to be more specific, a partisan news channel founded by a multi-billionaire with a dirty past and questionable business ethics. Still have to narrow it down. Well, CNN ranked Cinnamon Toast Crunch 11th out of the 13th most sugary cereals. Because if Americans don't have diabetes by the age of 10, they're doing something wrong. Or so the best-selling cereals would have me believe. Nonetheless, CTC is a tasty little confection, even if its cinnamon and sugar dust reeks of gluttony and the good old stars and stripes. And cinnamon,
Lots of cinnamon. Enough to make you fail the cinnamon challenge if you snort the stuff. Not that I've ever tried that. So now we've got Cinnamon Toast Crunch rolls. Because many Americans, especially the fat ones, have fond memories of waddling over to the local shopping mall and purchasing some high-sugar, high-calorie cinnamon buns that smell like high blood pressure. And thousands of other Americans lay awake at night thinking up ways to separate those nostalgic fat people from their money. And General Mills came up with this. Unfortunately, this doesn't quite have the same cinnamon sugary punch of the original CTC, possibly because of the tonal dissonance of having a crunchy cereal that looks like a soft cinnamon roll. Except it doesn't. Not really. The quality control is way off the mark on this one, and these barely resemble anything more than round shapes. Denser, more compact shapes than the normal squares, but they look more like rabbit droppings than cinnamon rolls. These also taste a bit more artificial and with a displeasing aftertaste compared to the original CTC, which is in my top 5 favorite American cereals. The cinnamon and sugar dust is still there, but it's fainter and there's nothing to replicate the taste or texture of frosting. It's just a big disappointment all around. So I rate the Cinnamon Toast Crunch rolls 3 silver spoons out of 5. Please remember to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine.
Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. There's nothing quite like the oily, musty, sharply acidic taste of a fresh piece of fish, and the more seafood the better. 1, 2, 3 at a time even. And my favorite fish in order of importance are dragonfish, opali, unicorn crestfish, cherry salmon, and haddock. Oh, I'm not talking about feasting on Alice's Cunnybarrow. No, I like where you're going with that. And if I can't get fresh seafood, then I don't mind substituting the gummy version. And the undisputed king of aquatic-based gummies is Swedish fish. So called because Swedish women are irresistible and, well... Another version of their origin says they were invented by Swedish confectionery Malaco in the late 1950s, and Malaco chose their distinctive shape because fishing was and still is an important part of Sweden's economy. They were specifically created for the US and Canadian markets, and these days you can't attend a cinema without herds of mewling brats sucking down these non-gelatin starch jellies. And because they don't have gelatin, they're a favorite of both dirty hippies and vegetarians, and the aforementioned fat mewling brats. My dad actually liked them a lot, and I've been observing Dia de Muertos each year by having a bag in his honor. Like many of you, I grew up in my place of birth, consuming copious amounts of Swedish fish. Mostly the red berry flavor, but like many of you, I graduated to a whole assortment of colors like orange, green, yellow, and even black. These days, they're distributed by the same proprietor of Sour Patch Kids, Mondelez International, and like Sour Patch Kids, they
They also contain inverted sugar, which helps the Swedish fish retain moisture, and carnauba wax gives them their distinctive texture. And despite the fact that Malako created Swedish fish with those colonial yokels in mind, which knocks them down several pegs in my book, I have to say they're amongst the better sculpts in all of gummydom. I've seen dozens of chewy, gelatin-laden enigmas that could be the Shroud of Turin for all I know. They look just as much like the Ark of the Covenant as bears, sharks, or fried eggs, areolas, I don't know. And the Swedish fish underwent a recent evolution with Swedish Fish and Friends, the endangered compatriots being a watermelon-flavored green sea turtle and the strawberry-flavored Amazon river dolphin. Like the original scarlet fish, these new gummies look spectacular, and I'm not ashamed to admit that they taste sublime. Like my first time hearing the dark side of the moon. It's the ideal consistency. Not too hard, not too soft. Perfect psychedelic rock. So I rate Swedish Fish and Friends 5 silver spoons out of 5. Please remember to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine.
Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. Frosted Flakes, they're okay. My American counterpart previously discussed the Frosted Flakes cereal bars and Tony the Tiger's sketchy past. Also, how they were originally called Sugar Frosted Flakes until Kellogg's removed the sugar, but good lord, not the sugar. At 10 grams of sugar per serving, Frosted Flakes is yet another kid cereal on the front lines of America's war on its own health. But you peasants don't care about that, do you? You enjoy the taste of high blood pressure and type 2 diabetes. Explains all the fat children I see on social media. The only thing worse than a mewling brat is one with a double chin. And one of the newest ways to give your ill-begotten progeny a negative body image, being the fatties that they are, is with Frosted Flakes Strawberry Milkshake. This new flavor variant adds a quasi-fruity spin to the flakes of sugar, and it helps create pinkish strawberry-flavored milk. Because my privy needs to look like I just pissed blood. Kellogg's has a slightly more flattering description than the blood in my urine, with ripe, juicy strawberry flavor coupled with rich, creamy notes. This cereal turns the milk in your bowl a fun, vibrant pink. I'm in the wrong line of work. I need to get a job in marketing. I wouldn't call it a ripe, juicy strawberry flavor, more like a heavily processed facsimile of something resembling fruit. This just feels all kind of wrong. Like the time I played Genghis Khan at the Globe Theater. They do turn milk a nice pinkish hue. Eventually. If you stir it a bit. But it tastes less like strawberry milk and more like some foul dairy product that got smacked in the face with red berries. With or without milk, this is fairly revolting. And the artificial strawberry flavor destroys whatever minor pleasure I could derive from something so fundamentally unhealthy. So I rate Frosted Flakes Strawberry Milkshake 2 silver spoons out of 5.
please remember to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine. Barbara, you've been hitting the sauce again! What is this? Cottage cheese!
It's from your counterpart in America. He said they're a staple in
Clearly!
the southern...
If white trash had a quasi-edible analog, it'd be this!
Your counterpart said you should expand your horizons. After all, your program is seen worldwide.
So is the New Jersey Seaside Reality Show, but it's still about as classy as a wet fart at the Louvre. My ass crack is more sophisticated than this baby batter.
So should I tell your counterpart you'll be skipping this one?
Ugh. No! Oliver Gerald keeps to his agreements, so I shall do what must be done. Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. And Barbara might be as daft as a pinto merchant, but as the sergeant says to the lieutenant, I have my marching orders. And today, that's grits. In the year of our Lord, 1584, when the Americans were still a pimple on the arse of our dear Queen Elizabeth, the natives of the New World introduced the colonists to a simple dish of stone-ground corn, boiled and mixed with butter and milk. Somehow that became this, and I'm meant to consume this chunky man pudding. That is without paying Therese the Knob Gobbler on 5th Street. Grits are exceedingly popular in the southern colonies, especially in the so-called Grits Belt, which stretches from lower Texas to America's capital of Addlepate and Fopdoodles, Washington, D.C. And those south of the Mason-Dixon line take great pride in their grits preparation, often adding eggs and bacon, fried catfish, shrimp, salmon croquettes, or country ham. South Carolina water must contain sulfuric acid which burns away their taste buds, because grits is their official state food, and apparently it's a symbol of its diet, its customs, its humor, and its hospitality. A man full of grits is a man of peace. So I hold everyone from South Carolina personally responsible for this appalling spunk. You'll be hearing from my attorney. What is that god-awful racket? Jimmy Midnight here with another special report. And you, sir, how dare you slander a true American original, you fancy-looking Euro trash. I've half a mind to chew you out until our next throwdown with the crowds. I'm gonna need that translated. Barbara, give me the abridged edition of low brain cell counts. I've got a Class A emergency. And why are you in black and white? Are you so devoid of substance that even colors decided to off? Never mind you that. I'm here to get this review back on track. A man who looks like the living embodiment of constipation shouldn't flap his gums about an American institution like grits without some backup. And you're those proverbial reinforcements? I think I'd rather sing Yankee Doodle at the base of the Lincoln Memorial while waving an American flag and being elected to America's Congress. You watch yourself. I don't take kindly to skunked out fops defaming the red, white, and blue.
Why don't you both review it?
Your lady friend talks funny, but I'm willing to share the stage with someone of your social stature. Ugh. Very well. If I must consume something as repulsive as grits, I may as well share the agony with someone else. Oh, for the love of money! It tastes like a mewling rat emptied the contents of his stomach into my bowl. This is more repulsive than the time I tasted my first wife's altar of Venus. Well, it's definitely not fish and chips, but grits have a certain charm to them, reminiscent of simpler times like the Andy Griffith Show or the Manhattan Project. I still have no idea if the nonsense spewing from your Yankee pie hole is English, but I'd rather have my gooseberries scrubbed vigorously with a cheese grater than have any more of this dreadful porridge. You've just got to add some protein or butter to it, preferably both. And then as a scrumptious little side dish or even a main course. Nonsense! A refined gentleman of my stature needn't lower himself to eat something I wouldn't feed to my prize-winning Pomeranian. Possibly to my manservant. Well, I wouldn't expect someone who looks like a combination of General Cornwallis and Fatty Arbuckle to properly appreciate grits, which I'll rate 4 pieces of silverware out of 5. And I'll rate them 1 silver spoon out of 5. And Barbara, take down a note. Don't go to South Carolina. Or give out my number to dopey fools in grayscale who look like a combination of Cecil Brown and Ernie Pyle. Fine with me. 1 colonoscopy a year is enough. Be sure to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine.
Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. You Americans! I once ate fried cow testicles with Worcestershire sauce before washing it down with the blood of a cobra. After a 3-week bender, I had a swig of scotch from a urinal, and I feasted on a stew made of turpentine, cigarette butts, and stale pretzels. And despite all that, I never thought of making a pickle-flavored gummy. And people call me a depraved, perverted misanthrope. But then again, Americans enjoy extravagant cuisine like scrapple, on a shingle, and chitlins or pig intestines. So I guess I shouldn't feign surprise that some Yankee Doodle yuts combined a pickled cucumber with gummies. I think I'd rather stick a cucumber up my vagina than eat something like this. But who's to say I won't enjoy it? Oliver Gerald never prejudges anything. I'm as open-minded as a 93-year-old Russian grandfather. This edible phallus hails from novelty candy retailer It's Sugar, which is supposedly known for their absurd sugar innovations that celebrate light-hearted rebellion. It's Sugar aspires to a future where everyone has access to the pure joy that comes from indulging in a world with fewer rules and more sugar. It's Sugar has over 100 locations throughout the colonies, and they sport curiosities like dingleberries, peach sweaty balls, which my American counterpart reviewed, and a 5-pound gummy bear. Amongst the rotating inventory is this pickle-flavored gummy that looks nearly identical to its vegetable analog. Now, because this is as much a novelty as it is a confection, I'm willing to grant it a tiny bit of leeway in the taste department, but it still needs to be reasonably pleasant. Or at least taste like what it's meant to emulate. Because no one's putting this in their Halloween basket
but you might give it to someone as a joke gift. Possibly someone you don't like all that much. So a heartfelt gift from me to all of you. Or conversely, you could offer it to a fair maiden you'd like to do wildly kinky things with. I once brought a wooden pickle, a spatula, and a donkey into a brothel, and, well, that's a story for a different day. This doesn't smell much like a pickle, more like a random clump of corn syrup and gelatin. And since gelatin contains animal collagen, this may be the only pickle that won't pass muster with vegetarians. The taste is a bit more reminiscent of pickled cucumbers, with a distinctly briny flavor, though it's relatively subdued. I guess that's good news, since too much brininess or sodium would make it foul and completely inedible. My American counterpart was just whining about how milkshakes don't mix well with breaded chicken. And while that's true, gummies and green fallacies aren't exactly natural allies either. They're like strawberry jam and absinthe. Good on their own, but they mix about as well as Rodney Dangerfield in high society. So I rate the It's Sugar Pickle Gummy 3 silver spoons out of 5. Be sure to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine.
Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. For Americans, some of their fondest childhood memories involve the first steps on the road to diabetes and high blood pressure. Take Starburst, which has been delighting children and giving them 2 and 3 chins for 62 years. It's pretty far from the greatest American candy, but with its square shape and waxy texture, Starburst has carved out a niche for itself for more than half a century, and it's helped lead to early onset diabetes, a multitude of cardiovascular issues, and millions of fat children, leading to a high percentage of American adults that haven't seen their feet in decades. If that wasn't bad enough, the flabbier you Americans get, the less you apparently bathe. So it's safe to say your average Star Wars or Star Trek fan and anyone who grew up on Lucky Charms and Cocoa Puffs probably smells like shit. Normal Starburst has gelatin like your average gummy, but it also includes tapioca dextrin, which gives it its distinctive texture and taste. It also makes Starburst a bit harder than regular gummies, especially if they were anywhere near someplace cold, making them tough enough to crack a tooth. But still, Starburst is distinct enough that it's earned its place amongst sugary favorites like Jolly Rancher, Fruits by the Foot, Pop Rocks, and countless other American confections that make cardiologists weep. So how do you take something with a distinct texture and flavor and turn it into a run-of-the-mill gummy? Pretty easily, apparently, since the company just released Starburst Airs Gummies, which apparently deliver a unique, soft, squishy, and airy texture. These playful and fluffy gummies are inflated with flavor, soft to bite into, easy to chew, and best of all, won't stick to your teeth. So, in other words, they know their normal Starburst candies are a bigger pain in the arse than anyone under 20, and the airs are their way of apologizing to you. Or at least that's my conspiracy theory. The standard version includes 3 of the 5 original Starburst flavors, with cherry, strawberry, lemon, and orange.
And while it doesn't include tapioca dextrin, it does have carnauba wax, making the gummies vaguely reminiscent of their harder cousins. And I'll admit it, these do taste marginally different from normal gummies. The flavor isn't quite as striking as original Starburst, but it makes up for that with a softer texture. Years from now, no one will look back fondly at regular Starburst gummies, but it's a lot more palatable than your average dollar store gummy or name brand offshoot, like Sour Patch Kids jelly beans. If you happen to find yourself mingling with the unwashed masses at a filthy blue-collar sanctuary like Walmart, you could do a lot worse than these. So I rate Starburst Air's gummies 3.5 silver spoons out of 5. Be sure to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine.
Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. Bacon is one of those treasures that bridges the social, political, and economic divide. This greasy, salty jewel has been around for thousands of years, dating all the way back to 1500 BC, when the Chinese created an early form of bacon by curing pork bellies with salt. And almost every major civilization, from Greece and Rome to medieval Europe and the New World, has added their own unique twist to these little slices of heaven. Except for those whom the religion forbids it, or if they're a filthy vegetarian who prefers to animals versus eating them, bacon is the greatest common denominator and a universal crowd pleaser. It's also amongst the prime contributors to America's giant posteriors and man tits, since Yankee bacon comes from the belly of a pig and is thin and streaked with fat, whereas European bacon comes from the loin and is thicker and leaner. But who needs good health and an arse that fits into a single chair at the cinema when you can have high blood pressure and arteries saturated with pig fat? Being able to walk on your own power and fit through a door frame is highly overrated. And what's the only thing better than bacon? Well, nothing, but a close second is a good sour candy. And novelty candy proprietor It's Sugar found a way to combine those two. I've spoken about It's Sugar before, and their novelty candy based on feces, testicles, and fallacies, and with more than 100 locations throughout the colonies, they've done their part to help make America the most obese first world country on earth, with more than a third of adults tipping the scales. I blame my American counterpart and his Fast Food Friday segment. I've also made no secret of my begrudging respect for Sour Patch Kids. They have an acute sour flavor that few bigger small brands have been able to match. And I'm always on the lookout for candy that comes reasonably close to SPK. So we've got two attractions here, a novelty version of bacon and a contender for the throne of Sour Patch Kids. Like with the gummy pickle, I'll try to factor in the novelty and the taste relatively equally. This is one of the finer sour candies I've had on this channel. It doesn't have the inverted sugar and sour sugar of Sour Patch Kids, but it achieves its robust sour flavor with an assortment of edible acids.
However, its sugar reaches this particular sour threshold, it's got an impressive kick. If this weren't a novelty confection, this would be an easy 5 silver spoons. But if I'm to cut edible fallacies a break on the taste front owing to its novelty, then I feel obligated to penalize a so-called novelty candy for less than satisfying aesthetics, even if it tastes sublime. And while the rainbow bacon is roughly the same configuration as normal bacon, it misses the mark on the novelty factor. You could just as easily call this ribbon candy because the rainbow aesthetic isn't the least bit reminiscent of bacon. If this were regular bacon with rainbow coloring, that'd be different. But with rainbow candy bacon, its sugar is being a bit too clever. I can appreciate it being part of an unbalanced breakfast, and them cheekily reminding you to not fry it in a pan like real bacon. But overall, it's one too many novelty steps that just doesn't fully work for me. That said, it is a delicious sour candy, and that should count for something. So I rate the It's Sugar Rainbow Bacon 4 silver spoons out of 5. Be sure to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine. Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt to any European company, especially one with the extensive and tasty history of Lindt. But this could test even my goodwill. When it comes to chocolate and spicy food, I generally feel the same way I do for women and automobiles. They should be kept far away from each other. Spicy food and chocolate mix about as well as Americans in education, like the Irish and bathing. But this curiosity from Lindt wouldn't be the first of its kind. Far from it. Spicy chocolate dates back thousands of years to ancient Mexico in 1900 BC. They'd combine water, vanilla, honey, and chili peppers with cocoa plants to make a spicy chocolate drink. The Mayans enjoyed this confection so much that they worshipped the cocoa god. And the Mayan emperor supposedly drank 3 gallons of spicy chocolate a day. And through the present, Mexico and South America enjoy a little spice with their chocolate. And you can find novelties like the world's hottest chocolate bar with a 9 million Scoville heat unit rating. Lindt's version includes chili extract with dark chocolate that's round about 70 to 80% cocoa. So it's slightly bitter but still sweet. Unlike the 90% version I had from White Trash Headquarters, Walmart, that one was pure bitter to the point of masochism. This chili chocolate is definitely an acquired taste. I can detect some chili at first bite, but most of the heat is on the back end. Like the bit of buggery I enjoyed with Isabella. And I suppose if you're into that sort of thing, the spicy chocolate, not the other stuff. If you like a little chili with your cocoa, this has a subtle spice to it. The slightly bitter and semi-sweet chocolate that Lindt excels at is still very much there, but it's a bit muted by a third flavor phenomenon, spice. It gives me a kidney stone just uttering these words, but I'm willing to grant there's valid food preferences beyond my own. Some peasants actually enjoy pineapple on their pizza or the taste of sardines. Some pathologically insane individuals like chocolate with a cocoa percentage of 90 or Fireball whiskey. And some lunatics enjoy tainting a perfectly delicious piece of dark chocolate with chili. No judgment here. There's even some dimwits who enjoy the taste of Mountain Dew Flamin Hot. So it's certainly possible that someone out there, possibly entire geographic regions, might like chocolate with a hint of chili. Those people might be objectively wrong, and they should probably seek professional help for their strange opinions. But if they do hold that opinion, it's possible they might enjoy this. It's probably the best example of a repulsive combination: chocolate and spice. So I rate Lindt Chili Chocolate 3 silver spoons out of 5. Be sure to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine.
Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. What do dreams taste like? Well, for me, dreams taste like having my teeth licked while rubbing Crisco on my nails and watching two poor people fight to the death. But I'm guessing Coca-Cola has a slightly different definition. Dreamworld is part of the Coca-Cola Creation Series, which includes the Coke Starlight that my American counterpart reviewed. That one was supposed to recreate the feeling of outer space, however the that works. And this is supposed to taste like dreams, those intangible, abstract projections of our subconscious. So, in other words, it should taste like peasants being denied unemployment benefits or America being voted out of the UN. At least if you all share in my dreams. According to Coke, Dreamworld makes the most fascinating parts of our imagination real. This limited edition, sparkling beverage from Coca-Cola Creations explores the realms of the surreal, the imaginary, and the otherworldly. That's a long-winded way of saying they have no clue what it tastes like either. In fact, that seems to be a running motif with Dreamworld. No one can quite pinpoint the flavor.
What is that supposed to taste like?
I don't even know what that is.
Now, what that extra tastes like, I don't know.
What is this?
If it tastes like America's greatest embarrassments, or my first wife's face when she doesn't receive alimony each month, then I'd say this definitely tastes like my wildest dreams, and give it an easy 5 silver spoons. But I suppose we can't always get what we want. If I did, you colonial lot would be back under the yoke of the Queen. It smells pleasant enough. Some sort of indecipherable citrus aroma with a hint of marshmallow? I got the 0 version, and it tastes like a moldy fruit salad? Like Fresca crossed with Chanel No. 5? Like mango, raspberry, and banana pissed on your orchids and forced you to sit through a 12-hour marathon of Doctor Who? Dreamworld actually doesn't taste all that dissimilar from Coke Starlight, a vaguely fruity essence with a touch of s'mores that's apparently Coke's go-to exotic flavor. For a program meant to highlight creativity and unique experiences, at least 2 of their creations are near carbon copies of each other. But what would you expect dreams to taste like? Something light and airy? Maybe cotton candy or marshmallow to reproduce the aesthetics of clouds? Perhaps something with an 80% alcohol by volume to expedite unconsciousness? Whatever you expected, it's probably not this. It definitely doesn't match my notion of a sweet dream. Or a nightmare. So I rate Coke Dreamworld 3 silver spoons out of 5. Be sure to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine.
Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. How do you take a food that's already closer to dessert than a well-balanced meal, pancakes, and make it even more unhealthy? Well, the Americans combine these cakes of the pan with one of the all-time high-sugar breakfast cereals, Lucky Charms, which is already on my list because, well, Irish. The result is something that can only spring from a country that has donuts for breakfast, Snickers for lunch, and diabetes for dinner. For the most obese first world nation on earth, Lucky Charms pancakes are just one of countless attractions in a lifetime of gluttony, high blood pressure, and stretch marks. And you colonial yokels wonder why America has only won a single Miss Universe contest in the past 20 years. Beached whales don't win beauty pageants. Anyway, I still have to review this because contracts and the sort, even if it does reek of American corpulence. I figured I'd get Barbara to cook this calorie-laden contraption because men belong in the kitchen just as much as women belong behind the wheel of a motor vehicle. Or in the voting booth. To start, you'll take the pancake mix, which contains small pieces of Lucky Charms, and stir it together with 1 2/3 cups of milk or water. If you'd like to avoid some superfluous calories with something that already puts you on a fast track to heart disease, I'd suggest you stick with water. You'll combine the mix with your liquid of choice, then heat up a well-oiled griddle or fry pan and measure out 1/4 cup servings. If you don't like your pancakes as black as your soul, I'd highly recommend you keep oiling up the pan. The mix contains pieces of Lucky Charms, and then you can add more fragments of the sugary harbinger of fat asses either during the cooking process or afterwards. Again, no surprise that this is one of the more popular programs on American TV. I might despise the lot of you, except for fine dining, which I really despise, but the one thing I'll never do is lie. And despite having nearly as much sugar per serving as a literal slice of cake, the Lucky Charms pancakes aren't awful. Also, turns out Barbara is just as proficient a cook as she is at trigonometry, so several pancakes ended up on the crispy side, but the sweet flavor shined through. The Lucky Charms actually complement the cakes quite well, and the additional cereal, while unnecessary, adds a nice textural contrast. I've had better pancakes, but for our mix, these aren't too bad. So I rate the Lucky Charms pancakes 4 silver spoons out of 5. And if you don't already have high cholesterol and blood pressure, so if you aren't American, you could do worse for an indulgent treat. Be sure to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine. fine cuisine and etiquette. With your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. And that's right, the pride and joy of American chocolate tastes like puke. And there's a good reason why. But first, let's take a stroll back to the late 19th century. For Milton S. Hershey, his eureka moment came when he visited the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition and saw the German chocolate-making machinery in action. Hershey immediately sold his Lancaster Caramel Company for the equivalent of $32.5 million in today's money. Milton took the proceeds and started the Hershey Chocolate Company with the goal of emulating the European-style treats he was so enamored with. At the time, chocolate was very much a luxury item in America, so Milton focused on milk chocolate, since its lower cocoa content made it cheaper to produce than its dark chocolate brethren. The Hershey Company produced the very first Hershey bar in 1900, and today it's known informally as the Great American Chocolate Bar. But because milk spoils quickly, the Hershey bar had a short shelf life. At some point, supposedly the early 1930s, Hershey began putting its milk through a process called lipolysis, which breaks down fatty acids and stabilizes the milk, preventing fermentation and extending the chocolate's lifetime to a full year. This, in turn, helped Hershey secure a contract with the US military to produce the emergency D-ration bar during World War II. But the longer shelf life carried a steep price, because a byproduct of lipolysis is butyric acid, a naturally occurring compound found in butter, Parmesan cheese, and yes, vomit. Butyric acid gives vomit its distinctive stench, and for Hershey's eponymous chocolate bar, a sour, tangy flavor. Ironically, one of the US military's requirements for D-ration bar was it taste a little better than a boiled potato, so troops wouldn't feel compelled to eat it in non-emergency scenarios. And Hershey's chocolate vomit definitely fit the bill. And while Hershey's chocolate formula is a closely guarded secret, and the company denies adding butyric acid, the compound is somehow finding its way in. Even after mass transportation and food technology had advanced to the point where lipolysis wasn't necessary, Hershey's has stuck to tradition, maintaining the same recipe over the last century. Many Americans assume that all chocolate is supposed to have that strangely acidic flavor, especially since Hershey competitors will often intentionally add butyric acid to imitate their famous contemporary. But most Europeans, and the few Americans who know better, all three of you, the ones in the know think American chocolate tastes rancid, and that's not unreasonable since it literally shares qualities with vomit. Be sure to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like, and I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine. Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette, with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. Only in America have 1 in 8 people been employed by McDonald's. Only in America do the same percentage of people believe in Bigfoot as the Big Bang. Only in America does 40 million tons of food, 1/3 of the supply, go to waste, while 38 million Americans go hungry. And only in America does one dream up an absurd confection like this: a fully sculpted, fully realized gummy pizza. But perhaps I shouldn't be surprised when a full third of the population is obese and consumes 3 billion pizzas a year that you lunatics would recreate this Neapolitan treat in gummy form. This fusion of Italian food and gelatin-based treats comes
comes to us courtesy of Man Tits and Muffin Tops. And also the famous American novelty confectioner It's Sugar. Since 2006, and in their own words, It's Sugar is known for their absurd sugar innovations that celebrate light-hearted rebellion, which take the form of oversized confections like a 2-pound Rice Krispies treat and a 5-pound gummy bear, and cheeky items like the dingleberries. Between my American counterpart and I, we've covered several of their curiosities. Some better than others. And this gummy pizza might just be their crowning achievement. Of course, It's Sugar isn't the first one to come up with this idea. There's been gummy pies with a sort of gummy spaghetti as toppings, versions that are divided into slices, and one's very similar to this one. But that doesn't take away from the sculpted beauty of It's Sugar's version. We've got the cheesy part of the pie, the crust, what looks like banana peppers, pepperoni, and either green peppers or parsley. Now, I'm not quite sure about that last one, but overall, it's an exceptional gummy sculpt. It's Sugar easily could have taken a lazy way out and made this more art than edible, and they also could have made the whole pizza taste the same. But it appears that every piece of this faux pizza, every color, has its own unique flavor. Not too hard, not too soft, it's a wonderful consistency and makes this confection that much more of a pleasure. If it weren't for the fact that one of the toppings is pretty much indecipherable, and it would have been nice if the pie were cut into slices. Those nitpicks aside, this would have been an easy 5 silver spoons. But again, those are minor quibbles. Finding fault with this wonderful creation is just as hard as picking the ugliest American. So I rate the It's Sugar Gummy Pizza 4 silver spoons out of 5. Be sure to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine.
Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. Some ignorant, illiterate ignoramuses insist that you can't judge a book by its cover, mostly because they're as fat as a whale and uglier than George Eliot, and they don't want to be judged. But either way, they're very much mistaken. I don't need to try a confection from Walmart to know it's just as filthy and proletarian as the store itself. I know with absolute certainty that fat people smell like spoiled milk, Star Wars fans have less sexual experience than Joan of Arc, and all food from Europe is superior to foul Yankee cuisine. Especially when that European confection has the storied history of J.S. Fry & Sons, the world's oldest chocolate bar brand. In 1866, J.S. Fry & Sons introduced Fry's Chocolate Cream, the first mass-produced chocolate bar and the oldest such brand still in operation. Chocolate Cream remained a British culinary superstar for the next 156 years. While 5 variants exist, including Peppermint Cream, which came about in 1934, and I'll be taking a look at today. Like Hershey's in the US military, Fry's Chocolate Cream Bar was closely intertwined with His Majesty's Armed Forces, specifically RAF bomber crews, which were often issued a chocolate cream bar before missions. But does Fry's, and specifically Peppermint Cream, live up to a century and a half's worth of tradition? Well, yes, of course it does, but I'll go through the motions anyway. Like all European chocolate, Fry's is rich, sweet, and delicious, with none of the weird additives of American chocolate.
And that's convenient because Fry's peppermint cream tastes an awful lot like America's own York peppermint patties. Though it'd be more accurate to say York peppermint patties taste like Fry's peppermint cream, since the latter predates the former by 6 years. For that matter, York peppermint patties are made by Hershey's. They have chocolate vomit fame, and be sure to check out my video on that topic. So both taste similar, but only one of them is made with superior ingredients. And I probably don't have to tell you it's not the one made in the United States of Sedition. Fry's version has a sharp, minty flavor to it, as refreshing as American tears, and as satisfying as pointing and laughing at poor people. And the dark chocolate exterior is almost as rich as I am. This takes me back to my wonderfully expensive childhood in merry old... well, that's for me to know and you peasants to never find out. Eating these reminds me of days long past and how much more privileged and important I am than the average person. Tastes like cultural superiority. So I rate Fry's peppermint cream 5 silver spoons out of 5. Be sure to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine.
Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. I've always said that women shouldn't have chocolate bars that don't have a girly wrapper or are marketed towards that time of the month. But they shouldn't eat fattening foods anyway, because the only thing worse than baby weight is a fair maiden who intentionally makes themselves corpulent and unappealing to eligible bachelors like myself. Which is why creating the Yoki Bar to target the so-called manly demographic made a whole lot of sense. What self-respecting woman would want to eat a chunky and delicious bar of individually portioned milk chocolate? So when Nestle debuted its brilliant It's Not For Girls ad campaign in 2002, it warmed my heart. It's like I personally kicked Gloria Steinem, Alice Walker, and Emma Watson down a few pegs. Like the National Organization for Women invited me to speak at their convention, and instead of giving a speech, I clogged all their toilets. But some particularly whiny critics, who think women should have chocolate, threw a tantrum, and in 2012 It's Not For Girls was removed from the packaging. I swear you let women drive motor vehicles and this is what happens. Either way, the bar itself never underwent the dramatic changes of its marketing, so that's a decent silver lining. Like watching one of your 7 properties burn down whilst Princess Diana. What? The ingredients are fairly straightforward. Sugar, dried whole milk, cocoa butter, cocoa mass, vegetable fat, and a few others. But of course, like most European chocolate and unlike Hershey's, this doesn't have butyric acid, so the Yorkie sweetness is immediately distinguishable from the vast majority of inferior colonial treats. This isn't overly complicated. It wasn't when I was a tyke, and it isn't now. But few chocolate bars in the world do chunky chocolate as well as this UK gem. Essentially, this is the chocolate bar version of a fresh piece of fudge, with the density and satisfying texture of that big hunk of chocolate. You won't find something like this in the States, and even if you did, it'd probably be a lot more sour, with a faint hint of vomit, owing to the butyric acid.
So while I wish Yorkie still made a concerted effort to keep women away from it, that way I'd still have a skinnier selection at the 3rd Street brothel, while I wish that the chocolate itself is just as good as I remember it. So I rate the Yorkie milk chocolate bar 5 silver spoons out of 5. Be sure to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine. Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. There's people who like pineapple on their pizza, mayonnaise on their french fries, or American chocolate versus literally anything else. They're all wrong, of course, but not everyone can be as perfect as I am. And then there's the special sort of degenerate who likes coconut with their chocolate. The same person who likes to kick puppies and take candy from babies. I mean, I like to do that last part. They have tiny hands. Don't put up much of a fight. Coconut meat in general is high in calories and fat, with a small bit of protein, fiber, and other nutrients like manganese, copper, potassium, iron, and zinc. And it tastes like a sweaty ball sack. The fact that so many Americans enjoy this ball sack covered in chocolate, they call it mounds. The fact that Americans enjoy this edible atrocity tells me everything I need to know. However, I have a confession to make. Mark this moment in history because it may never happen again. Not only did a European chocolatier copy Mounds 31 years after the latter's introduction in 1920, but this Bounty Bar, one of the first times in history that Europe stole something from America, this bounty isn't something of exceedingly high quality. I'd even call it below average, unpalatable, distasteful. But that was years ago. I'm sure Mars has since refined their formula. Nope, it's just as bad as I remember. The dark chocolate exterior is decent enough, but the moment I go half a centimeter deeper, I land on the aforementioned sweaty ball sack. Short of taking a steaming shit on it, I can't imagine a worse way to ruin chocolate than by adding coconut filling. It's like chasing Macallan 18-year-old Sherry Oak with Natty Light, like drizzling ketchup on Chateaubriand. If you genuinely like Bounty or Mounds, and your taste buds haven't been burned off, then I would highly recommend checking into your local sanitarium, because you clearly lost your marbles. So I rate the Bounty Bar 1.5 silver spoons out of 5. Be sure to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like, and I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine. Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. I'm not a very religious man, but even the greatest skeptic must tremble in the presence of certain unholy phenomena. Incidents and anomalies so foul, so heinous, that you feel the nefarious influence of the Prince of Darkness himself. I speak, of course, of candy corn. Something this depraved This vial belies the existence of a merciful God. And amazingly, Americans have been worshipping at this altar of Satan since the late 1880s. If that's not incontrovertible proof that the United States is doomed, cursed to stink up the globe for all eternity like a rancid Sisyphus, then I don't know what is. Candy corn's origins stretch back to when 50% of all colonial Cretans were farmers, and a nation identified with agricultural-themed candies, which are marketed year-round. In fact, this edible infraction wasn't associated with fall and Halloween until the 1950s, when American imbeciles began handing out individually wrapped candies. In the late 19th century, a man by the name of George Renninger, who was an employee at the Wunderl Candy Company in Philadelphia, invented candy corn, though it wasn't originally called that. And when the predecessor to the Jelly Belly Candy Company began selling these tri-colored atrocities in 1898, they marketed them as a candy called chicken feed. Appropriate, since it tastes like something you'd give to livestock, or that which evacuates their exhaust chute. In modern times, 16 million kilograms of these accursed candies are sold each year, because America suffers from a collective psychosis. It seems like candy corn is the butt of nearly as many jokes as fruitcake, but someone's eating this unholy calamity. To entertain you peasants, I've chosen the autumn mix version by Brock's, which is responsible for around 95% of this seasonal scourge. Oh, and Brock's reports that the 5 American states buying the most candy corn are in order: California, Texas, Florida, New York, and Michigan. The autumn mix comes in pumpkins, harvest corn, and classic candy corn. And while I love to ramble mindlessly until Christmas to prolong the agony, contracts and the sort, even if I'd rather eat the contract than candy corn. Oh, this Yankee Doodle bullshit! I'd rather for finishing in and then raw and bloody with over having one more candy corn. While this bag boasts variety, each one tastes like a mixture of caramel and earwax. Very, very sweet earwax. Enough to make you gag, like the time I accidentally swallowed a thimbleful of Mountain Dew. Candy corn has a density of chocolate, but a softer texture that's more akin to Mike and Ike's, with the result being this putrid, unhappy medium. And the sweetness! Good Lord, the obnoxious, overwhelming sweetness! These pyramid-shaped containers of sugar, corn syrup, and carnauba wax are so saccharine sweet that Full House is telling them to sap the up. Even if candy corn remains a Halloween exclusive, now that might prove the existence of God. Even if it does, it's so insufferably sweet that it could single-handedly help dentists buy French chateaus. I know I spend a lot of time disparaging American cuisine, but this is on a whole nother level of rancid. I almost feel sorry for you colonial lot. Almost. Because let's face it, every American has been exposed to this dreck at some point in their lives. Normally around All Hallows Eve. And like your first time with a woman, it's thoroughly unpleasant. Though unlike women, your 50th time with candy corn is just as revolting as the first. So I rate Brock's Candy Corn Autumn Mix 1 silver spoon out of 5. And if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go gargle some bleach. Be sure to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine.
Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. I've never quite understood the colonial fascination with All Hallows Eve. Some claim Halloween was based on Celtic harvest festivals, while others assert Christian origins, with it honoring saints, martyrs, and all the departed. All Hallows Eve was the evening before the Christian holidays of All Hallows Day and All Souls Day, and all three were known as All Hallow Tide, when the devout prayed for souls who hadn't reached heaven. As for the wearing of costumes, vengeful spirits supposedly wandered the earth until All Hallows Day, and to avoid the spirits' wrath, people disguised themselves with masks and costumes. Either way, it slowly morphed over the centuries into a perfect microcosm of the peasant class, where people don shabby rags and go door to door begging for a handout. I mean, anyone who wears a costume and parades around like a jester clearly has unresolved issues. I would never lower myself to such humiliation, soliciting others to give me a sugary treat lest I play a cruel trick on them. I can hoodwink poor people 365 days a year without dressing as Count Dracula, Frankenstein's monster, or a sexy nun. But enough of you colonial yokels have costume fetishes, so I figured I'd take a look at some Halloween treats. No threats of pranks or cruel tricks, except of course for the crushing reality of your meager lot in life, the cruelest trick of all. I'd like to start with the best-selling candy in the United States of treason and the second bestseller worldwide, Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. Reese's has helped you peasants deal with your sad and meaningless lives since 1928. Though, since the beginning, they've been handicapped by the inclusion of Hershey's chocolate. Though the ingredients do include real peanuts, surprisingly. And that plus an ass-load of sugar helps to disguise the taste of Hershey's chocolate vomit. Reese's has a ton of flavor variants, and like most mainstream chocolate brands, they're no stranger to holiday editions, including Halloween. The one I purchased, Pumpkins, is all in the aesthetics, and there's zero difference between these and their normal cups. But the pumpkin sculpt is respectable, and no matter what it looks like, Reese's earns its worldwide acclaim. At least that's what I would have said before I opened it to find that the pumpkin isn't pre-carved like the wrapper would indicate. Not that I'm surprised that an American marketer would have problems with the truth, but especially given that this comes from such a decorated brand, this is unacceptable. Reese's isn't just a fiscal triumph, it's one of the few American confections that doesn't make me vomit. High praise from me! And while it still tastes as good as ever, they took the quintessentially American lazy way out with the sculpt. Next up is Sour Patch Kids, another brand with innumerable special editions and seasonal favorites. And I've begrudgingly admitted my, begrudging respect for SBK and Mondelez International. Few candies, American or not, can match SBK's sharp, sour flavor. And they've had a number of triumphant variants like SBK Cola, SBK Hots, SBK Cole, and Sour Patch Kids Zombies. Unfortunately, Mondelez made like the American education system and took the lazy way out with zombies. They still taste like normal SBK, and that's never a bad thing, but despite the name, they don't look like zombies or anything else creative. Unlike Fruit Loops and M&M's, these do at least have distinct flavors. But the best thing about Sour Patch Kids is...
I'm the best part of Sour Patch Kids.
Yeah, this acid must have kicked in. Who the are you?
I'm the ghost of Christmas future. I lend my expertise to OG Eater.
Who?
You know, this guy.
Ah, the idiot! So, what is it you do exactly?
other than run your voice through an online filter?
Well, normally I torture OG, but I have a feeling my powers won't work on you.
Was there anything else?
I heard you were talking about SBK zombies, and I'm contractually obligated to appear whenever OG mentions SBK, but it seems like you have it covered. So, nice to meet you. God save the Queen and all.
Anyway, let's move right along to Peeps Monsters. Or to be more specific, Frankenstein's monster. Peeps, of course, have been an Easter mainstay since their introduction in 1953. And with naught but sugar, corn syrup, gelatin, food dyes, and salt, they're a deceptively simple American favorite. Though Americans are a simple people, very, very simple. Simple Jack simple. And for this year's All Hallows Eve, Peeps come in monsters, ghosts, pumpkins, and skulls, the latter of which could pull double duty for Dia de Muertos. I don't think I need to recap Peeps' famously soft, gooey texture or its adorable sculpt. Even most bum American has heard of Peeps, and most have a positive impression. Oh, what now? Can I help you with something?
Aren't you going to invite me in and offer me some tea or candy?
Am I supposed to know you? Did the Paul House run out of porridge again?
No, I'm Pixie. I've done a few collabs with your American counterpart.
Ah, that explains it. Any friend of my American counterpart earns an equal amount of scorn and cultural condescension. Say, you look like the third cousin of Morticia Adams. Maybe you can answer this question that's been vexing me. Why do Americans like Halloween so much?
Well, I'm Canadian, but All Hallows Eve is pretty universal. The unmatched joy of assuming a new identity, if only for a few hours. The spooky atmosphere, the creepy ambience, putting your everyday worries aside and embracing...
Good Lord! Is every Canadian this loquacious?
No, we're all super nice. Get your stereotypes straight.
Yeah, well, I don't bow to the altar of Robert Smith and Edgar Allan Poe, so as the Americans say, you're barking up the wrong tree.
And you need a nap. You're crankier than a senior citizen at a Greta Von Fleet concert.
Right, well, give my...
Let's stick up your asses in helping matters.
You seem like the kind of person who likes to get the last word, and... Next up is Ghost Dots, a variation of the conical candy which Tootsie Roll Industries likes to market as America's #1 selling gumdrop brand. The original Dots first appeared in 1945, and it's become a favorite in American cinemas, mainly amongst those with ageusia or a complete loss of taste. For All Hallows Eve, the brand previously touted Dots Bats, which were blood orange flavored, and Candy Corn Dots, which is incontrovertible proof that God is dead. Ghost Dots' gimmick is that each gumdrop is a mystery flavor, with strawberry, lemon, lime, cherry, or orange waiting on the back end. But regardless, they all sport Dots' trademark flavor of waxy candle. What? No random peasant wants to butt their nose into my business? Some Yankee Doodle Yutz wants to waste my valuable time with inane chatter?
Oh my gosh, that's so rude.
The next treat could be the figurative belle of the ball, mainly because it's the only one hailing from Europe. I think we're all familiar with Deutschland's own Haribo, which has been delighting candy lovers since Hans Riegel created the company in 1942. And yes, technically it came about during an extremely dark period in Germany's history, and the resultant turmoil would become the bloodiest and most destructive conflict in human history and lead to the near extinction of entire people, the start of the nuclear age, and up to 50 million dead. Boy, I really wrote myself into a corner there. Anyway, Haribo has thrilled Europeans for 80 years and shown American confectioners how to do gummies proper. All except for one type. You all know how I feel about Sour Patch Kids. It pains me to admit such affection for an American candy, and how few treats, European or otherwise, can match its unique sour flavor. Well, that may have changed with Haribo's Sour Vampire Bats. I don't know what's changed between this and Goldbear's Sour, other than a textural difference. Otherwise, the ingredients are mostly the same. The Sour Bats do include inverted sugar, which the Goldbears don't, but that's the sweet half of Sour Patch Kids. Whatever it is, Haribo's Sour Bats possess a curiously strong kick. And finally, I'd like to take a look at a trio of novelty gummies from the Hide and Eek Boutique, whose trademark is owned by Target. In any case, I picked up Gummy Eyeballs, Gummy Fangs, and Gummy Brains, each of them highly detailed and tasty with some interesting textural triumphs, owing to them being edible body parts. Fake, of course, I think. It would explain a lot, though. My favorite is the Brains, with its strawberry flavor and incredible sculpt. In fact, I can already feel a bit smarter, and considering my genius level IQ, that's quite a feat. Maybe they are real brains. Be sure to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like, and I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine.
Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette, with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. Continuing our edible expedition through All Hallows Eve, today we're taking a look at some fall and Halloween-themed Oreos, those wafer and cream-filled American cookies that have sprouted up like weeds in more than 100 countries. Because if Americans love anything more than the sound of their own voice, it's spreading their culture and commerce around the globe like a virus. Over the years, Oreos have released countless special editions and holiday variants. On this channel alone, we've covered Treason Day Oreos, Birthday Cake Confetti Oreos, and Neapolitan Oreos. And Nabisco loves getting in the Halloween spirit. This year, they're commemorating All Hallows Eve with Oreo Boo, which is very similar to years past, and unfortunately, all the accoutrements are window dressing only. They still taste the same as normal Oreos. But they do come in 5 different festive designs, including a jack-o'-lantern, a bat, a spider web, a witch, and a ghost saying boo. The orange cream is a nice touch, though, like I said, it's all superficial. The orange is mere food coloring and it still tastes like vanilla. That's a bit disappointing, though the original Oreos are one of the finest examples of American snackery. And if you want to immerse yourself in the supernatural and the bizarre, you could do a lot worse than these. Expectations do matter, and this is a mere cosmetic upgrade, but it still tastes as good as ever. So I rate Oreo Boo 4 silver spoons out of 5. And with fall upon us, I'd also like to explore Oreo's Pumpkin Spice, which acts as a good barometer for, well, if you enjoy this,
You're a basic bitch.
yeah. Fall signifies the autumnal equinox, the harvest moon, All Saints' Day, Dia de Muertos, and America's bullshit anachronistic version of Thanksgiving, where the pilgrims break bread with the natives instead of massacring them. But autumn also brings on an entirely different debacle, that being the scourge of the pumpkin spice. American Karens love this uniquely autumnal flavor almost as much as they love calling the police on minorities. Though even a refined gentleman like myself isn't completely immune to the charms of pumpkin spice. While I'd rather get a colonoscopy from a polar bear than step foot in a Starbucks, I have enjoyed pumpkin spice pastries and the occasional pumpkin spice candy. Then there's pumpkin spice Oreos, which on the face of it would seem like the ideal combo, trading the chocolate for vanilla wafers and vanilla cream for a pumpkin spice filling. And theoretically, this one does offer something unique and interesting, unlike Oreo Boo, which changes the aesthetics but not the flavor. As much as it pains me to praise yet another treat from Mondelez International, one of the few worthwhile snack companies in the land of the quadruple extra large, I've no choice but to give this my hard-earned seal of approval. The pumpkin spice Oreos don't look like anything special, but the autumnal cream filling is a wonderful substitute for vanilla, and I actually found myself going for seconds. For American treats, that's as rare as steak tartare. I've sampled every type and manner of illicit substance, but this is one of the most addictive items I've ever had. I'd still rather have dental surgery from a Parkinson's patient than step foot in a Starbucks, but if pumpkin spice Oreos returns every fall, then I suppose I'm a proud basic bitch. So I rate pumpkin spice Oreos 5 silver spoons out of 5. Be sure to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine.
Hello, everyone. I know you're excited to see Oliver, for some reason, but I just wanted to take this opportunity real quick to thank everyone for their love and support. I don't know if my longtime fans may have realized it, but we just passed the 1-year anniversary of this channel. We've been through a wild ride so far, from the very first Fast Food Friday. A little rough around the edges, but I think I've improved a little bit since then. And Oliver joined us, Jimmy Midnight, even Yellow. We've got a great slate of Christmas content coming up. Hopefully you've all enjoyed our Halloween content. And I just wanted to, again, say thank you. Thanks for all the support, and stay tuned. Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. If anything's a good match for the sugary excess of Halloween, it's sugary breakfast cereals. Because America's famous love affair with obesity starts with fat little children having breakfasts all but guaranteed to give them early onset diabetes and a fat ass. And whether Halloween has Christian or pagan origins, it's a perfect match for the gluttonous colonial lifestyle. All except the walking door to door, which I'm sure will be replaced by Wall-E-style personal transportation devices in our lifetimes. But these All Hallows Eve cereals don't require trick-or-treating, or anything more than begging your parents for some future cavities. First up is Cap'n Crunch's Halloween Crunch, which has the infamous milk turn gimmick. In this case, it turns it an unappetizing green. And like all the milk turn cereals I've seen, this one sorta works, if you stir it and wait long enough. So essentially, you've got the same sweetened corn and oat cereal that's thrilled kids since 1963, plus red pieces that kinda sorta resemble ghosts. Kinda. And they turn the milk green. Kinda. If you want your milk to look like someone vomited in your bowl,
If it turns colors at all, then give this a try. Otherwise, it's more or less the same as the original. Next up is... Dear God! Hocus Pocus 2 cereal. Hocus Pocus is that cult 90s film that no one actually likes, but a lot of people pretend to. Whether it's middle-aged housewives, men trying to get laid, or the 1% of the population that actually finds Sarah Jessica Parker attractive. And lest we forget the emotionally stunted women who are too mature for the Little Mermaid, but not mature enough for the craft. Those are the only people who genuinely enjoy Hocus Pocus. Otherwise, the story and dialogue are insufferable, and the songs gave Andrew Lloyd Webber ear cancer. But because there's no justice in this world, America gets to keep its independence for the last 246 years. And Hocus Pocus got a sequel. And to celebrate the Rocky V of Halloween movies, Kellogg's released this supplemental cereal, Berry Brew. Appropriately, a trite sequel to a film that didn't need to exist in the first place has birthed the laziest possible tie-in cereal. I mean, this is the textbook carbon copy of every single limited edition breakfast offering from the uninspired pieces, stars, to literally nothing else. A cynical cash grab for a redundant sequel appearing exclusively on Disney+. As the Americans would say, the jokes write themselves. Then there's Rice Krispies Shocking Orange. It's orange. That's it. What? If they're going to put this little effort into making it, then I'll put the same amount of effort into reviewing it. Finally, there's chocolate frosted flakes with spooky marshmallows. This may be the best of the bunch, but that's a bit like the biggest stud at a Star Trek convention. The ladies are getting all lubed up just thinking about this fine piece of man. Frosted Flakes has been building up American fat reserves since 1952, when it was originally known as Sugar Frosted Flakes. And while Kellogg's may have excised the sugar, they certainly didn't get rid of the sugar. With 10 grams of sugar per serving, it's right up there with some of the more potent ways to pad your dentist's retirement. But let's face it, no one these days has a healthy breakfast. I mean, unless you're in any civilized country besides America. But you colonial lot do enjoy starting the day with some future heart disease. And every once in a while, Kellogg's makes that prospect extra enticing with a special version of Tony the Diabetic Tiger, like Cinnamon Frosted Flakes, Honey Nut Frosted Flakes, and Chocolate Frosted Flakes, which is pretty far from a new invention. But this is one of the tastier variants I've had. Then they pair the chocolate flakes with marmots that kinda sort of resemble Frankenstein's monster, a bat, and a ghost. Again, you'll have to use your imagination a bit on the marshmallows, but overall it's a very nice mixture. Be sure to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. Then I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine. Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide. Oh, f*** me! I thought I was done with the abject horror of candy corn. But along with having to pay child support, it seems that my misery knows no bounds. In fact, since I began gracing you peons with my anointed presence, I've had to lower my victual standards considerably, from Fabergé eggs to takis, and from Wagyu beef to grits. I blame every single one of you colonial cretins, especially with my latest assignment, Nerds Candy Corn. I don't even know where to begin with this one. The name simultaneously conjures fat virgins spooning their lightsabers and the most malevolent scourge since Nickelback. Both thoughts make me want to chug Pine Sol, but more than that, I'm wondering how in God's name nerds melds with candy corn. It would seem like the oddest possible pairing, with nerds a small hard candy and candy corn somewhere between Mike and Ike's and a diabetic coma. And just to boil my blood a bit further, nerds took the lazy way out on the taste front, with 5 different colors, but only 3 total flavors, including grape strawberry and 2 different versions of both blue raspberry fruit punch and cherry watermelon. And of course, the shaped like the most evil confection since Pixie Sticks, candy corn. I haven't been this excited since I got a hornet stuck in my urethra. But why waste any more time? I mean, I can think of many good reasons, but no amount of veal and Vaseline will get me through this review quicker. So without further ado, if I expire, I'm coming back as a ghost just to shit in your morning coffee. Here we go. Hold on. It's not awful. It's actually not too bad. While it carries the nerd's title and that other accursed name, the texture and flavor are actually more akin to Sprees, those button-shaped compressed dextrose candies. Not coincidentally, both Spree and Nerds are owned by the same parent concern, the Ferrara Candy Company. If you really want to get specific, this Nerds Candy Corn merger is most similar to Chewy Sprees, since both have a candy shell that gives way at first bite. And the sweetness is bold, no doubt, with a potent kick. But it's a good sort of pain. Like my first time with a cat o' nine tails. I just love the efficacy of this one's sweetness. It truly is the peak of its perfection. Whoa! Hold on. 2 weeks ago, you spent 5 minutes that none of us will ever get back whining about how sweet candy corn is, and now you're praising the Nerds version for the same deal? What gives? How is one the spawn of Satan and the other delightful? Perhaps it's the texture. It's far more satisfying to bite into Nerds candy corn than conventional candy corn. Or maybe with the latter, it's a foul flavor combined with the excess sweetness. Whatever the case, I could eat Nerds candy corn all day. If I wanted to be as corpulent as a trailer park housewife, but I do awful, terrible things and never taste a single conventional candy corn again. My only real complaint with the Nerds candy corn is their laziness with repeating the same flavor twice. But otherwise, this is an excellent confection and another win for American sugary treats. So I rate the Nerds candy corn 4.5 silver spoons out of 5. Be sure to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and reading on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine.
Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. Most of us are familiar with Newton's third law. For every action in nature, there's an equal or opposite reaction. When you push an object, it creates static friction. If you pull an elastic band, it generates force, stored as energy, and releases said energy when you let go. And if a people continuously starts the day with a pastry that's high in sugar, carbs, and calories, their bodies will become softer and pudgier. So with Pop-Tarts wildly popular in the States since 1964, it's no surprise that more than 40% of Americans are obese. Action: equal or opposite reaction. Though if I must lower myself to the grime and filth of the great unwashed masses, I can think of far worse avenues than Kellogg's Pop-Tarts. Naturally, this fatty pastry is more repugnant than even the most bourgeois European gruel, but at least the former tastes acceptable. Which leads me to the subject of today's educational sermon from me to you: Pop-Tart Snickerdoodle, the dumbest name for a dessert since Spotted Dick. Then again, this is the same people that served up classics like AIDS, a chocolate weight loss supplement, and Rocky Mountain oysters, or animal testicles. Snickerdoodle is often conflated with sugar cookies, but while the latter merely includes white sugar, the former includes that plus cinnamon. And leave it to the Americans to combine a breakfast pastry already high in sugar with a treat that's comparable to sugar cookies. You know what they say about breakfast. It's the most important start of early tooth decay. There's something missing with this. I'm not quite sure what. I know I stood on my soapbox lambasting Americans for their attachment to sugar and diabetes, but I feel like frosting could have gone a long way here, because as is, the Snickerdoodle Pop-Tart is just a bit too dry. Like my third wife's Cunny Barrow 1 week into our marriage. I know that cinnamon contains cellulose, and too much of it gives you dry mouth, but we're not talking about the cinnamon challenge here. It shouldn't be quite this arid. I suppose if you like Mandelbrot, a traditional Jewish dessert that's dry as the Sahara, then you might enjoy this. But otherwise, if you choose to consume this, you'll want to have a drink close by. So I rate the Pop-Tart Snickerdoodle 3 silver spoons out of 5. Be sure to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine. Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. Europeans have always embodied the epitome of masculinity, from skin-tight hose to codpieces, royal color schemes, and hairpieces suitable for the manliest of men. So it pains me to admit when a European confectioner pusses out in favor of a dubious medical condition. It's like drinking Diet Cola, smoking filtered cigarettes, or worst of all, turn in your man card, hand over your testicles, going vegan. Seriously, if I ever voluntarily give up meat, just stick an ice pick in my brain and put me out of my misery. Swiss chocolatier Lindt is a legend in the confectionery business, with a glorious history stretching all the way back to 1845. They're the gold standard for mass-produced chocolate confections. So to see them take the girly way out with oat milk chocolate, it hurts. It really hurts.
Lint's oat milk salted caramel chocolate is for people who need a Valium to get through a thunderstorm. It's for people who get PTSD from a mosquito bite and get triggered when their coffee cup is too secular. This dairy-free vegan confection just oozes femininity, like the Cheesecake Factory hosted a Will and Grace marathon. Like Harry, Charlotte, Samantha, and Miranda starred in the vagina monologues while sipping a pumpkin spice latte. Allegedly, this is for those who are lactose intolerant, if that is such a thing. Personally, I think it's as dubious as menstrual cramps. Expertly crafted by the Lindt Master chocolatiers, this candy bar offers the rich flavor and creamy texture of a great big pussy. XY chromosomes need not apply. This premium plant-based chocolate bar features creamy chocolate and crunchy salted caramel pieces for a classic sweet indulgence made with oat milk. Absolutely nothing about this matriarchal confection is indulgent, unless your idea of decadent is eating kale, and putting plant-based next to chocolate is an insult to all past, present, and future chocolatiers. Having a delicious slab of fine European chocolate is about asserting your intellectual and cultural superiority, not marching with the League of Women Voters. I'd raise a stink, but this queef just did it for me. This has a weird, coarse consistency to it. Not like milk chocolate, which embraces your mouth like silk. This is like stumbling across the Gobi Desert. It's grainier than a truffle filled with sand. There's also some vague caramel flavoring, but at this point, I just don't give a shit. If this is the alternative to avoiding milk chocolate for some shady medical condition, then don't embarrass yourself in the entire history of cocoa by growing a vagina and having this dreck. If you're so inclined to have oat milk chocolate, then just cut out the middleman, so to speak, and neuter yourself. You won't need that useless sack of flesh any longer. So I give Lint's oat milk salted caramel chocolate 2 silver spoons out of 5. Be sure to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like, and I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine.
Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. It's rare that anything leaves me speechless, and this isn't one of those times, but the very idea of a performance cookie, something you eat to rebuild muscle fibers, and as the Americans say, get swole, well, it's almost too hard to believe. Then again, this wouldn't be the first high-sugar protein supplement. Far from it. Certain varieties of Cliff Bar, Metarex, Power Bar, and countless others have more sugar than a Snickers. It's no wonder so many colonials trying to get ripped, swole, cut, chiseled, and jacked end up with a tubby midsection and a fat ass. Meatheads trying to bulk up and get a happy ending from that hottie at the gym instead get a beer gut and type 2 diabetes. Compared to some of those candy bars disguised as protein bars, the performance cookie I'm looking at today isn't uncommonly unhealthy. It actually has a fairly low sugar quotient, given that 2 relatively substantial cookies only have 9 grams of sugar total. It's got 180 calories for those same 2 cookies, 8 grams of protein each, and while it's not quite salmon, lean chicken breast, or cottage cheese, for something with the word cookie in it, it's not the worst protein source. It even has an inspiring story behind it. Performance Muffins was founded by siblings and fitness enthusiasts Richard Esposito and Angela Hubert. The linchpin behind their venture was that Richard's spoiled little brat of a progeny refused to eat anything that didn't taste good. And after Richard regretted not getting that abortion, he decided to form a company to satisfy his and other children's penchant for junk food without giving them clogged arteries by age 7. And so Performance Muffins was born. A variety of products would follow, including performance cookies, and while Richard unfortunately passed away in 2016, Angela would carry on his legacy with their company a temporary detour on the American public's road to obesity and heart disease. Very moving. But there is a taste component to this, as in the thing you Americans are sorely lacking in. So I can run down all the health benefits of this performance cookie, but nutrition doesn't matter if it tastes like fruitcake. I don't know if it's the vanilla protein blend, but for a chocolate chip cookie with this little sugar, it tastes surprisingly good. And for something with this little fat and saturated fat, it's also unusually soft. You'd think the trade-off for a cookie with so few repercussions would be a dry, brittle texture. But this tastes good and is reasonably enjoyable to consume. It's still not what I'd call a quality protein source, like black beans, tuna fish, or my baby batter, but for alleged junk food, you could do a whole lot worse than this. 16 grams of protein for 2 large cookies won't get you ripped. We can't all look like an Adonis, but it won't derail your fitness goals either. So I rate the performance cookie 4 silver spoons out of 5. Be sure to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine. Last time on OG Eater. Heartbreak. Drama.
You went behind his back and you cheated on him.
Mystery.
I'm sorry. We've lost the baby.
Oh, God.
No, I mean like we've literally lost. We can't find him.
Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. And that cold open was more melodramatic than the American Revolution. But it wouldn't be the first hyperbolic bullshit on this channel. Take, for example, Liquid Death, which sports the most overwrought ad campaign ever conceived for something so mundane as H2O. Ads with Tony Hawk, Wiz Khalifa, porn star Cherie DeVille, a literal devil, and the wildest adult animation since heavy metal. Murder your thirst indeed. Our evil mission is to make people laugh and get more of them to drink more water more often, all while helping to kill plastic pollution. And it's just water. Sometimes sparkling. They do cheekily admit the very transparent plan to cut down on plastic waste with the craziest shit since Gallagher. May he rest in peace. Eliminating plastic waste is a noble goal, I suppose. Every year, my estate holds a plastic molding competition with the proceeds going to the Environmental Defense Fund. And after the contest, the materials are properly dumped in the ocean. So, to each their own. Last time I happened to mention that Liquid Death comes in sparkling, distilled, and some special flavors, like severed lime and mango chainsaw. Again, the pinnacle of subtlety. So
I thought I'd check out the two latter flavors to see if all their products just rely on creative marketing or whether they have any redeeming qualities on their own. With Severed Lime, these ruthless tallboys of flavored sparkling water are armed with agave nectar and natural electrolytes to refresh your body and murder your thirst. Each 16.9-ounce can contains 12 calories, and by murdering your thirst with this beverage that was dreamed up by a serial killer, you can save the whales and clean the oceans and other hippy-dippy bullshit. Oh, and there's lime. A very, very faint hint of lime. Presumably to make this overwrought drink as healthy as possible, since potent flavors probably would have entailed sugar or an artificial sweetener. But this is just sparkling water, with a taste that's vaguely reminiscent of lime. If you concentrate hard enough, the mango chainsaw is more or less the same. Sparkling water with a muted touch of mango. Like I said last time, your appreciation of Liquid Death largely depends on how deeply you buy into their mission statement. It's about the overall experience, what drinking water from a can symbolizes. Other than overpaying for the most abundant natural resource on the planet, for my own part, my only use for patchouli oil is to start a bonfire, and I have hippies shot on sight on my property. But your mileage may vary. So I rate Liquid Death Severed Lime and Mango Chainsaw 3.5 silver spoons out of 5. Be sure to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine.
Oh, you bastards.
Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette, with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. And if there's one thing I despise more than those uppity colonials and their uppity independence, it's the Irish. And Irish Americans, well, they're just about the most despicable creatures on earth. I have a joke for you. What do you do if an Irishman is creeping up on you? Trick question. They can't. You smell them coming from 2 kilometers away. The only redeemable anything from the so-called Emerald Isles plays second fiddle to superior whiskey from their Gaelic cousins. Naturally, the only noteworthy contribution from both nations comes by way of intoxicants. I'd make a joke, but their greatest liquid export does it for me. So naturally, it falls to me to review what even I'd consider kitschy cultural appropriation in the form of a sugary breakfast cereal. That's right, Lucky Charms has a new flavor for the 58th time this year. Keep at it, lads. Follow your dreams. If you ever catch that bloody leprechaun coursing being a time-honored Irish tradition, along with getting so blackout drunk that your piss turns green, if you ever catch that high-pitched midget, you can wish for beer that doesn't taste like linoleum. So this latest limited edition offering includes the normal frosted toasted oat pieces plus an assortment of Marbits, with hearts, stars, horseshoes, clovers, blue moons, rainbows, red balloons, unicorns, and the addition of magic gems, which automatically makes it new and exciting. I mean, it kinda seems like giving Barbie a new hat, but I'm just your humble guide to the finer things in life. And of course, this brand new repository of sugar, corn syrup, gelatin, and artificial flavoring
taste exactly the same as the other Marbits. And they look as much like rainbow chicken pox as actual gems, but why try when you can snort coke and fart out this stunning breakthrough, this fire from Olympus? Lucky Charms isn't the worst sugary breakfast cereal. The toasted oat pieces are decent enough, and fans swear on a holy pot of gold that these Marbits taste different and better than other marshmallow bits. I don't hate them, but the fact that this silly crap celebrates the Irish, and the fact that they added this tiny chickenpox marshmallow and called it new, automatically bumps it down a few pegs in my book. So I rate Lucky Charms with magic gems 3.5 silver spoons out of 5. Be sure to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those with good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine.
Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. And right when we close the books on America's annual celebration of their native people's genocide, we turn towards the holiday which exalts the patron saint of obesity, who each year allegedly squeezes his fat-ass down your chimney, which isn't a sexual euphemism. And then he leaves you a treat beneath your giant pine wood and tastes your sweet milk, which actually is a sexual euphemism. Course that's if you're good. If you've been naughty, the jolly red fat man will horsewhip you. At least that's in my experience. Come to think of it, I don't think that was Santa, and I don't think that was a horsewhip. Despite everyone pretending to be nice to each other, I actually enjoy the Christmas season. Mainly because the massive increase in alcohol-induced motor vehicle incidents thins the herd. But I also enjoy some of the food. So while every American peasant organizes a feast that costs 1/3 of their annual salary, I like to take a look at some of this edible, holly jolly bullshit. And today I'm focusing on one of Europe's worst mistakes since the American Revolution, Haribo. How this German confectionery has remained wildly popular for over a century is a bigger conundrum than the clitoris. While Haribo gummies share similar ingredients as the competition, like sugar and gelatin, Haribo deliberately lets them sit before they ship out. When gummies sit, they lose moisture, and that gives Haribo products their trademark stiffness. Some folks enjoy that stiffness. Again, not a sexual euphemism. And the smarter, more educated people amongst us find their hard texture revolting, like the bottom of peasants' feet. Still, Haribo is consistently one of the best-selling confectioneers across Europe, because for all the region's cultural, intellectual, and victual superiority, every once in a while they throw in their lot with Jerry Lewis, allow you to marry dead people, and eat 30,000 tons of snails a year. Actually, that's just France, the Jar Jar Binks of the European Union. Anyway, today's Haribo of horrors is candy cane gummies, which come in cheery cherry, sugar plum, and candy apple, with a texture that's harder than my washboard abs. Sure enough, these are almost as firm as actual candy canes, with
overly subtle flavoring that's about as assertive as Milton. If you're in need of a chew toy during the most wonderful time of the year, these gummy candy canes might fit the bill. But if you don't want the equivalent of P90X for your jaw, then you'll have little need of these. The sculpt's not bad. So I rate Haribo's candy cane gummies 2.5 silver spoons out of 5. Be sure to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine.
Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. Every once in a while, I like to visit a Reddit forum called Virgin Exchange, watch an episode of The Big Bang Theory, or stop by Comic-Con. Not that I enjoy any of those things, mind you, but I do it for the same reason people visit zoos. To observe the freaks from a safe distance. Or in this case, being exposed to nerds without being exposed to their stench. But of course, I could just cut out the middleman and the aroma of Cheetos and Red Bull by having nerds candy. Incidentally, and speaking of a repository for wild animals, the alleged origin of the candy's name harkens back to a Dr. Seuss book If I Ran the Zoo, where the so-called nerds are amongst the creatures under consideration for inclusion. If it were up to me, I'd spay and neuter all nerds before releasing them back in the wild. Catch and release program, if you will. But for some reason, I'm not allowed to make decisions that affect others' lives. Something about ethnic cleansing. You know how war crimes tribunals exaggerate. Anyway, first up is the wildly creative Frosty Nerds, which is just like the normal socially inept candies, but they come in 3 flavors versus the normal 2. Watermelon, wild cherry, and punch. I haven't been this blown away since my third wife whipped up a homemade batch of plain oatmeal. There's no real surprises here. It's Nerds in 3 flavors versus 2 and with a festive design on the package. So it's the same miniature rock-like candy with one of the sweetest cores in the industry. If you prefer something a bit more subtle, you won't find that here. But you probably know that already. So I rate the Frosty Nerds 4 silver spoons out of 5. The other items should also be familiar, mostly for those who caught our All Hallows Eve content, since the Holiday Nerds rope is basically a repeat of the Halloween version, and all the other ones. It's not a brand new item by any means. But for those who've never had it, it contains a gummy string with a crunchy, nerdy exterior, and it's that textural contrast that works so well. As with the Halloween rope, this one is fantastic. It's one of those candy combos that sings. It's the closest I'll ever come to loving virgins, gamers, and Star Wars fans. Something that shares a name is more than enough. So I rate the Nerds Holiday Rope 5 silver spoons out of 5. Be sure to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine. Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. You know what gives me joy? Having a homeless person with his shabby rags, disheveled appearance, and one protruding arm beckoning me to deposit even a single pound to brighten his day, and me callously telling him no, visiting the orphanage and serenading them with a rousing rendition of I Ain't Got No Body, of bringing a 3-layer cake to a Jenny Craig meeting, or my annual pilgrimage to Mount Vernon to piss on George Washington's tomb. But the so-called Immaculate Conception transposed into cookie form? Not so much. Oreos are one of the many treats in the voluminous portfolio of Mondelez International. And it's one of several American confections that I don't hate. Of course, with Oreo variants, there's two very different outcomes. A unique creation with a novel flavor, and a mere cosmetic upgrade that's about as creative as a slice of white bread. The Joy Oreos are the latter, with 5 winter-themed designs and red-colored cream, but the exact same taste. And that's not me jumping the gun on the review, it's spelled out right on the package. I suppose there's something to be said for honesty, but I'd rather a dirty, rotten liar try to sell me on something unique than honest marketers cheekily acknowledging how unoriginal they are. These certainly aren't bad, but as mentioned, the red cream is the result of food coloring, nothing more. As for the designs, they come in mittens, a snowflake, a penguin, a snowman, and one that says Snow Day. So I suppose they deserve some kudos for being aesthetically pleasing. It almost makes up for the flavor being as unoriginal as My Country 'Tis a Thee. In a vacuum, I can't fault the taste. It's just as satisfying as ever, and original or not, it's still better than 99% of America's confectionery dreck. But these do exist in a world with dozens of Oreo variants, including the original, which dates back to the early 20th century. Some of those variants try something different, while others are lazier than my housekeeper. This past Halloween, I reviewed 2 seasonal Oreo variants. One, the pumpkin spice version, was refreshingly original, while the other put 5 kitschy designs on the wafers and called it a day. Sensing a pattern here. So I rate the Joy Oreos the same as I did Oreo Boo. 4 tasty but unoriginal silver spoons out of 5. Be sure to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like, and I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine. Jimmy Midnight here with another special report. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, the Caribou Champion, the Juggernaut of Judea, the notorious Knight of Nazareth. Few know the true story of this mythical mammal, this renowned reindeer, so to help tell this whopper of a tale, I've done the unthinkable and enlisted the help of that flippant fop, that loathsome lion.
Oh dear God, enough with your mindless Yankee Doodle prattle! Yes, I am Oliver Gerald, your guide to the finer things in life, including mythical animals who transport an obese man in red robes. A long time ago, a young reindeer began experiencing persistent fatigue, shortness of breath, and unexplained weight loss. When his reindeer kin finally convinced Rudiger James, or Rudolph for short, to see a doctor, he was diagnosed with stage 4 lymphoma. The North Pole healthcare system is worse than America's, so Rudolph couldn't afford treatment. Instead, doctors recommended an experimental remedy involving gamma radiation. As a result of the treatment, Rudolph lost 90% of his body hair, and once the gamma rays impacted his nasal cavities, it turned them a nice, healthy candy apple red. Now, the other reindeer used to laugh and call him names, but it wasn't because of his cancerous nasal growth. You see, the experimental gamma treatment also made Rudolph incontinent, so he'd regularly be pissing and his little reindeer heart out. Oh, and Santa didn't put him at the front of the pack so he could light the way. This scarlet schnoz is a 40-watt bulb at best. No, jolly old Saint Nick was just a sick who liked torturing his indentured caribou. So when he put Rudolph at the front of the sleigh, the smell of urine and reindeer feces would waft backwards and assault the nasal cavities of Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, Vixen, Comet, Cupid, Donner, and Blitzen. And while you're mulling over Santa's latent fecalphilia, I'll pass it back to that American Muppet for an edible interlude. Yeah, so in honor of Rudolph, whose origin is a lot more horrifying than I remember, I'd like to examine a couple Rudolph-themed confections, starting with these officially licensed gummies. And speaking of which, you might think Rudolph is a public institution alongside jolly old Saint Nick and Jesus, but the rights to the reindeer with the maroon muzzle are actually held by the Rudolph Company for the story, and Pearson PLC for publication and reprint rights. About as holly jolly as a tax audit. So the Rudolph gummies from Flicks Candy come in green apple Santa, strawberry Rudolph, and blue raspberry Sasquatch. And while the sculpts aren't quite as detailed as on the package, Rudolph looks like a cross between a rocking horse and Gorbachev's forehead. But they have a robust flavor, and unlike the famous Kraut gummies, these won't crack a tooth. So I give the Rudolph gummies 4 snazzy spoons out of 5. And now back to everyone's favorite cantankerous...
Thank you, moron! So on one foggy Christmas Eve, Santa came to say, Rudolph with your nose so bright, won't you contact the RAF about acquiring advanced radar and heads-up displays to help me navigate in zero visibility conditions? Because, you know, a tiny little maroon muzzle won't cut through the fog like a searchlight. That's just silly. After Santa delivered presents to all the good little boys and girls, with Saint Nick navigating by instruments alone, he gave Rudolph a large loan to finally get the surgery he so desperately needed. Except by then it was too late, and the cancer had spread to Rudolph's spinal column. And so, on January 3rd, 1632, Rudiger James Vanderdeer, aka Rudolph, aka Sanguine Snout, passed away from complications of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And he's lived on in folklore and popular entertainment, though most films leave out the part about Rudolph himself and the cancerous lymph nodes. With that, I'd like to thank my agent for booking me this thankless gig, and I pass it back to Edward Murrow. And thank you, Oliver, for that nightmare fuel. I'll close out this special look at Rudolph the Irradiated Reindeer with this adorable chocolate sculpt from the good folks at Palmer, who you might remember from the National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation chocolate bar. Like that film tie-in, this is more of a novelty than a serious confection, but that said, this is one of the nicest sculpts I've ever seen, with food dye for his ear, eyeball, mouth, and of course his nose. And while the food dye is just that, and the whole confection has one uniform milk chocolate taste, that's nitpicking, because it's rich, sweet, and delicious, and the sculpt is stellar. If you'd like to memorialize Rudolph's tragic life, or celebrate him the old-fashioned way without death and incontinence, then pick this up from your local apothecaries or 5 and 10. So I give the Rudolph chocolate sculpt 4.5 snazzy spoons out of 5. Thanks for joining me for another special report. Please remember to like this video and subscribe to my televisual program, and I'll see you next time. This is Jimmy Midnight signing off. In a pineapple under the sea. This weirdo, absorbent and yellow and porous is he. So he's a bright tampon. Nice. I'll be sure to hit up SpongeBob when my vagina is leaking. But he's not just a tool for that time of the month, he's also the inspiration for this Christmas-themed gummy hamburger. The Christmas part springs from them deeming it coal. Someone's been naughty. But the black part is equally reminiscent of the squid ink hamburger buns that are so popular in the Far East. Squid ink buns, and a main character on the show is called Squidward, who serves hamburgers. I could be overthinking that, but I'll take it over the American habit of underthinking everything. It's black raspberry flavored, and while it's about as healthy as Pixie Sticks, a mere 1/3 of it has 100 calories and 15 grams of sugar. It tastes delightful, and I often forget that you Americans will happily trade sugary snacks now for diabetes and heart disease later. So I give the SpongeBob Gummy Hamburger 4 silver spoons out of 5. Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. There's something about this time of year, the gingerbread happiness down Gumdrop Lane with peace on earth and goodwill towards men, that makes me want to projectile vomit. I like the food well enough. All those magnanimous feelings make people want to up their calorie intake. Especially in America, where the average person eats enough crap to form a layer of insulating blubber for the long winter. But all that altruism makes me want to club a baby seal. So combine that seasonal philanthropy, brought about by the birth of baby Jesus, to a woman who'd never been and a fourth man. Combine that Christmas benevolence with an American institution like Twinkies, and it puts me in the mood to dropkick a puppy. I figured my dumber, uglier American counterpart review of some minty green splooge would be enough peppermint prattle for this channel, but the morons who signed my paycheck thought otherwise. What can I say about Hostess? It's about as quintessentially American as high blood pressure, and it's churned out fat little Yankee children for over a century. That's a whole lot of double chins. The Twinkie was invented in 1930, and despite popular misconceptions, a Twinkie produced then wouldn't still be good today. In fact, the shelf life of most Twinkies is about 25 days. And while the beloved yellow sponge cake won't last forever, it has stayed consistently popular since the Great Depression. One of the latest flavor variants is this limited edition mint chocolate version, which replaces the vanilla with a creamy mint filling. Now, you'd think a minor upgrade like that, replacing the vanilla with mint, wouldn't change much. But it's a revelation. Fans of Bendix Bitter Mints, and the inferior American version, know that the perfect complement to fine dark chocolate is a robust peppermint interior. Hostess apparently got the memo and they've run with it here. They might be American, but as the Americans say, even a broken clock is right twice a day. Replacing the vanilla with mint cream is the sort of genius move European confectioners dream up on the regular, and Americans randomly stumble upon once a decade or so. It's like they were always meant to have this ectoplasm filling. It sure beats the normal man spunk. Now, you might need to cover your ears for this one. Here goes. The mint chocolate Twinkies from Hostess, an American brand with a disgraceful 100-year legacy, is brilliant. I'd sooner spit in the face of American institutions like Hostess than praise them, but I'll make an exception here. God help me. So I give the mint chocolate Twinkies 5 silver spoons out of 5. Be sure to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life
and delightful cuisine.
Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. Is there anything more prototypically Christmas than candy canes? I mean, other than higher rates of depression, motor vehicle accidents, and visiting friends and family that you wouldn't piss on if they were on fire. Because what better way to commemorate the birth of the bearded Messiah than with a candy shaped like a walking stick? A stark reminder that we'll all end up feeble and useless. Like most sugary treats, candy canes came about as a way to get adorable little children to shut the f*** up. In the late 17th century, the choir master at Cologne Cathedral was beset by a cluster of screaming brats. So we asked the candy maker for some sugar sticks to stuff in the kids' noise holes. Unfortunately, it didn't quite work as intended, and 350 years later, children are still a gigantic pain in the arse. Meanwhile, those hook-shaped candies that were originally meant to pacify all the whiny little headaches across the globe are a thriving business, with more than 1 billion candy canes sold throughout the holidays. And in honor of the biggest headache of all, I'd like to take a look at some candy canes that appropriate famous American junk food brands, starting with Skittles. Like the normal button-shaped candies, this beckons you to taste the rainbow, which is to say all 5 flavors in the same candy cane. And the result is a cluster of the highest order. I applaud them for trying, though as Homer Simpson would say, trying is the first step towards failing. All the flavors just sort of fuse together. I get what they were going for, but even if you grab a handful of disparate Skittles, it's not a vile cacophony like this. No flavors stand out. In fact, no flavors are even truly recognizable. Moving right along to red, white, and blue Airheads. Now, I won't make the obvious connection between the name of this candy and America's intellectual capacity. That's low-hanging fruit. But I will say that few treats epitomize the mindless oral fixation embodied by candy canes quite like this. Oh, it's time for another root canal, courtesy of the Great White North. Do you know I had to have a moat installed because of you? How'd you get past all the motion sensors?
Pixie magic.
You know, I don't do the whole supernatural thing. I saved that shite for my American counterpart. What?
Our combined powers overwhelmed your pitiful security.
What are you even doing here, anyway? With Halloween in the books, aren't you hibernating for the winter?
Well, I heard you were covering candy canes based on American...
Aren't you Canadian? And with dawn approaching, don't you need to retire to your coffin?
Yes, but I'm closer to America than wherever you are. And the US didn't steal my fish and chips or whatever your beef is.
They exist! That's more than enough!
So I figured I'd offer my assistance. An outsider-insider perspective, if you will.
Fine! Not like anyone's watching this shit anyway! So, what's the big deal with these vacant craniums?
Well, they date back to the era of hair metal and Reaganomics, so there's that.
So guilt by association is what you're saying?
No.
If a candy originated during one of the biggest military buildups in US history, that makes it better?
That's a whole lot to unpack.
Well, anyway, the Airhead candy cane, since you asked.
I didn't.
The cherry flavor tastes like cough syrup that expired a decade ago. Blue raspberry isn't quite as repulsive, but there's not much to it. And like most indigo candies, it leaves your tongue looking like you French kissed a Smurf. And the white mystery flavor is just that, a bloody mystery.
some sort of random fruity flavor, and I don't give enough of a to investigate it further. So there we have it. A mediocre candy makes for a mediocre candy cane. And in the spirit of Christmas, I'll take the rest of these to the nearest poorhouse, gather every misbegotten soul, and light these wretched sticks on fire. Better they starve than touch these cavernous craniums. And finally, the surprising highlight of the trio, Hawaiian Punch. It comes in lemon berry squeeze, fruit juicy red, and polar blast. And while I thought it'd be like the sugary drink, so obnoxiously sweet, these had a sharp, distinct flavor, so exactly like the drink. Be sure to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine.
Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life.
Kraft macaroni and cheese is one of those American icons that bridges the generational divide despite being as appetizing as squirrel pellets. How do I describe the taste of powdered cheese over stale pasta? Well, it's like a delicious combination of stale peanut butter and a goat's ass. It's like mixing raw flour with skid marks, or combining flaxseed oil with a snot bubble. Add orange food coloring and processed cheese powder, and you've got nearly a quarter century of fond memories and happy little rats lapping up something I wouldn't feed to a feral rat. So when I saw a gummy version of the foulest American dish since Rocky Mountain oysters, I was intrigued and horrified. I regularly lob pointed criticism at food variants that bear little resemblance to their original inspiration, but in this case, I pray to God these gummies don't taste like boiled cabbage and jockstraps. They certainly look the part, with gelatin-based treats fashioned like macaroni, with a faithful orange tint to them. But thank the good Lord the orange is just food coloring, because I'd sooner get a colon cleanse from a gorilla than have cheese-flavored gummies. So it's clearly not the powdered abomination of its boxed cousin, but then what does it taste like? I maintain that I'd rather get a cranial sacral massage from a cheese grater than have cheese gummies, but I am morbidly curious to know what the latter would taste like. I suppose it's the same inquisitiveness that drove my American counterpart to try a chicken tender milkshake. That said, I'm very much appreciative that this actually has some random citrusy flavor. I would have guessed orange or mango. This is somewhere in the vicinity. And that's the best you're liable to get from a treat meant to evoke nostalgia over a boxed meal that tastes like a sweaty ball sack. So I rate the Kraft macaroni and cheese gummies 3.5 silver spoons out of 5. Be sure to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine.
Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life.
Avatar was the unforgettable post-colonial allegory showcasing the beauty and majesty of Pandora, state-of-the-art stereoscopic visuals that redefine the theatrical experience with plush landscapes, vibrant colors, and blue aliens. Actually, once you took out the 3D glasses and screens bigger than a jumbo jet, you were left with naught but an extra whiny environmental diatribe, Ferngully in space, and blue aliens. The man who gave us some of the most thoughtful, introspective action films of all time set the new standard for giant Smurfs bumping uglies. And that Smurf movie made more money than a GDP of many small countries. So, naturally, it got a sequel, with another box office presumably big enough to fund a revolution. And so the logical next step was a tie-in serial. Because at that point, the only means of escalation are to sponsor a trip to the cosmos to find the actual Pandora, or a cheap cash grab. I think Kellogg's chose poorly, but life is full of disappointments. And remember that part about blue aliens Well, this special version of Frosted Flakes, or Pandora Flakes, is exactly like Avatar because it has blue balls. Wait, that came out wrong. That is the same blue circular pieces with the overwhelming taste of blueberry. I should point out that Frosted Flakes is already one of the sweetest cereals on the market, with 12 grams of sugar per serving, and these blue balls could push it into diabetic coma territory. But you know what they say, breakfast's the most important meal to get a head start on type 2 diabetes. Good lord, is this stuff sweet! Like it bypasses sugar cookies and honey smacks and lands squarely amongst churros, cheesecake, and the molten lava cake at Chili's. I expected some sort of surprise with these blue balls. An explosion of flavor, a syrupy infusion, or a sweet release. What I got was a goddamn fire hose of sugar that hits you like an errant shot in the eye. I'm not entirely sure one of the sweetest cereals in the breakfast aisle needed blue balls. First of all, that's just rude. And it could precede a trip to the oral specialist, a dentist. But Avatar has giant blue aliens that look like a cross between kitty cats and Slender Man, so blue balls were a must. You might say Kellogg's felt an overwhelming sense of pressure to do so. Like a loaded gun, or an active volcano ready to burst. So I rate the Pandora Flakes 3.5 silver spoons out of 5. Be sure to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine. God, yes! 5 silver spoons out of 5!
You need to review it!
Ugh. You cross paths with one Russian spy and get caught defecating on the Lincoln Memorial and f***ing the Queen in one weekend bender, and people act like you owe them forever.
You need to get your act together and...
You know, if you just put down the Cadburys once in a while, I could have been pulling your hair and whispering your majesty in your ear. Anyway, welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host Oliver Gerald the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. And I'd love to just cut to the chase here. Twix cookie dough is one of the finest candy bars I've ever had, but you probably want a proper review. I tell you, blackmail is a bitch. For those who didn't know, I'm proud to report that Twix actually originated in the UK. It's no wonder I like it so much. It doesn't have the artery-clogging aroma of Americana. I can't explain it, but it just feels a bit more refined. Twix was first introduced in 1967, and this combination of caramel, cookies, and chocolate was known as Raider across Europe until it switched to the international brand name in 1991. Of course, even the name Twix is steeped in UK lingo, deriving from the idea that there's twin Bix or biscuits, hence Twix. Mars would eventually sully its good name by introducing Twix to the colonies in 1979, though I get it. America has taken over global commerce like a thief in the night, and sometimes to survive, you're forced to do things you don't want to do, like going to my daughter's primary school concert. Sounds like a chorus of screeching cats. And when Mars isn't being violated by its Yankee overlords, they'll occasionally put out some limited edition Twix, like Twix Santas, Twix Cookies and Cream, Twix Dark, and now Twix Cookie Dough. Who'd have thought that the missing ingredients for Twix Nirvana, in a treat dominated by cookie wafers, is more cookies? Raw ones, as it were. This cookie dough is a bit crunchier than you might be used to from your local froyo or ice cream shop, though it could just be what's surrounding it. And it's the perfect complement to the caramel and cookie wafers, all enveloped in chocolate. This is everything a chocolate bar is capable of being. All the others are terribly jealous, like America is of the rest of the world. For all you peasants are of my fabulous wealth, superior intellect, and a wit sharp enough to split a hair. So I rate Twix Cookie Dough 5 silver spoons out of 5. Be sure to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like, and I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine.
Welcome to Fine Cuisine and Etiquette with your host, Oliver Gerald, the Eater, your guide to the finer things in life. And I wanted to comment on a viral interweb trend, which one website called the snackification of caviar, wherein a peasant on TikTok named Danielle Matson applies Kaluga Amber and Kaluga Gold caviar to a variety of snackable vessels, including Doritos. Now, just uttering that sentence puts me in the mood to club a baby seal, but I'll try to keep my emotions in check. Because clubbing an entire puppy mill and poking the tummy of every fat little child like the Pillsbury Doughboy wouldn't be half as scandalous as putting fine cuisine like caviar on a peasant receptacle like Doritos. It'd be like serving Chateaubriand over takis, or smoked salmon garnished with grits. On the one hand, we have caviar, or salt-cured fish eggs produced from wild sturgeon in the Caspian and the Black Seas. And then there's Doritos, a flavored tortilla chip that's about as classy as a dingleberry. The first one has adorned the plates of nobles and royalty since the 10th century. It's the archetypical way to flaunt one's wealth, to prove your cultural and moral superiority over deadbeats who can barely afford a Big Mac. The second item is renowned by gamers and virgins, often one and the same. And they leave your fingers looking like you explored your girl's nether regions during her time of the month. To even suggest that the two foods are remotely compatible betrays one's peasant upbringing. You're about as lowborn as a stink beetle and twice as ugly. Having caviar is about asserting your cultural supremacy over those whom God chose to be poor and smelly. Not about teabagging random strangers on the interwebs. The idea of snackifying caviar was popularized by Matson, but it's become this fad that spread like a virus through electronic means, mainly TikTok. In Matson's 200,000 subscriber special, she lays down the proverbial gauntlet,
Kaluga Imperial Gold Caviar, the so-called least oceanic no briny caviar with earthy flavoring. And she pairs that with nacho cheese Doritos, the ugly American of snacks.
We are using Kaluga Imperial Gold, which is the only freshwater sturgeon that swims in the Amur River.
She tries to deflect some of the blame for this unholy pairing onto her brother, the Caviar King. But responsibility rests squarely on her delicate shoulders and her pussy-whipped boy toy. She takes one of those lowborn chips, adds some sour cream, and slathers a treat on top that's more expensive than the average peasant's weekly salary. She may as well spread goose quill jam atop fruitcake, or bring your own fat little child for lessons at the Royal Ballet. I think even Americans can do better than this outrage against everything good, decent, and expensive. Be sure to show your appreciation for my efforts with a like. And I shall return to educate the great unwashed masses and all those of good letters and breeding on the finer things in life and delightful cuisine.